Peace, family. We're back with it about that experience. Your boy Fonzi Neutron. Hope everybody great out there and had a positive week. Join once again with a special guest for some great fire conversation. Maff the concept, artist in his own right. We're gonna be talking about some music, exploring some of the aspects of hip hop as we observe the 50 year of hip hop anniversary as it's coming to an end. We're at what, 1st of December right now, so this is our last month. But Math, how you doing, brother?
I'm all right. How's everybody doing? How are you, Fonzi?
Yeah,
And yeah, I like what you said. 50 years of hip hop.
yeah. Well,
I've been a big fan and participant and practitioner in the art made by the FBAs. I like that culture. I like that genre.
we've definitely been appreciative for all those that came before us, paving the way. We've been celebrating the culture. Oh yeah, some of us we're gonna continue to celebrate it. We've been celebrating it. We're gonna continue to add on, and hopefully it evolve and grow in the healthiest or most positive way possible. Now we do know things change and evolve throughout time, and there's been quite a few different interesting happenings happening within hip hop that we're going to look at, like the situations happening with Diddy and a few other guys from what some may deem as like the old school or a different generation. And I guess we could look at the new generation now with the new artists. We don't want to seem like we're taking just aim at some of the female artists, but we have had a lot of people speak out and how they feel. There's a lot of degradation now with some of the female artists and stuff and how they're producing their music. So we're gonna be shooting the breeze on quite a few bits. So I mean, yourself, like you mentioned, being a hip hop practitioner and a patron and partaker of the culture. How important is hip hop to you?
Well, for me, I mean, it helped. For me as a Westerner that grew up in the Middle East, it helped me form my own identity by watching others present their own identity. So it made me formulate and look at myself and see how I could represent myself in a way that I felt comfortable using the cultures that I have originally indigenously. But what I think hip hop really did for everyone was teach everyone Ebonics.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because I watch a lot of sports and different things now, and I'm like, is it just me or is everybody speaking a particular type of way now with
Yeah,
uh,
everybody's speaking Ebonics now.
yeah, it's kind of crazy how the terminologies and stuff change. And I remember at one point where hip hop was very niche in terms of the other communities that may have listened to it or observed it. But
hmm
I think it's past the millennium period with obviously your Eminems and people like that. They expanded it to, I think, wider ears, and
Yeah.
now you have it where a lot of people they've adopted these mannerisms, and not just from the music. As you mentioned, just the whole lifestyle and culture which was added into the music, and a part of it when we see a lot of films and people have watched a lot of movies and just picked up different
Advertising is a big
tonality and
part of hip hop
references.
too.
Yep.
I mean, gaming now is a big part of hip hop, which is crazy. Gaming has now been streaming is now a part of hip hop culture, which is interesting to think of a culture that primarily started in the street is now being conversated online, which is the total opposite. Like an example, a Clubhouse is one.
Yeah, well, we've seen a huge rise in podcasting. People feel as though some of it can be destructive with just how people are choosing to go about their modes of conversation, what they're speaking about, how they're presenting themselves. I mean, as I said, we're at the end of 50 years of hip hop year right now. How do you see that the culture is represented? Like, let's just focus on like this year with some of the stuff that we've seen reported. Um,
Okay, so
Huge moguls in the
let's
industry.
take account of the things that have happened this year. So there's been a big RICO charge with a DJ with DJ Envy on Breakfast Club. There's the Diddy situation. There's what else has happened? I mean, there's the Sexy Red. There's the internet phenomena of Sexy Red. Uh, I mean, there's been a lot. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know if you would throw some of the Will Smith saga into that. I don't know. I mean,
Oh yeah, yeah,
Fresh
yeah.
Prince, he a part. He a
Well,
little part of hip hop.
yeah. I mean, obviously, I mean, even if he wasn't, even if we directly didn't listen to Will Smith's music, the Fresh Prince was a reference in a lot of people's bars. I mean, Hillary was a staple in people's house, as was Aunt Viv, as was oh, what was James Avery? You know something about James Avery? He was Shredder in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh yeah, yeah. He got a long, decorated career. Rest in peace to him. I believe he passed away. Right.
Yeah, rest in peace to James Avery. So yeah, they're a part of hip hop. They might not be a part of street culture, but hip hop wasn't. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
necessarily say
people
hip
looked at
hop.
Will Smith as like a corny rapper and stuff, but as you said, the Diddy situation, Envy, a huge part of hip hop with the Breakfast Club. One of the biggest radio shows in hip hop, and we've heard some statements, backwards and forwards, interviews and stuff that happened this year with Special Led, who some people remember from I Got It Made, and he spoke out. And he felt like hip hop has got a destructive aspect which he thought was brought on from like the West Coast. So that led to a lot of different conversations within that section.
I
But
don't want to blame all of the West Coast because Souls of Mischief came out of the West Coast too.
yeah, I mean, it sparked a lot of conversations. I mean, how do you feel the hip hop industry is being ran or controlled? Because sometimes we hear some people that say, they feel there's been a bid to create more violence and hostility in the streets that potentially would tie into the prison industrial system and complex. We've heard people say, it's just all about money. And when it started, it had a lot more social commentary and value. And people feel as though now a lot of stuff's just more about either making money, flashing how much money you've got, or criminality, or in some cases for the females, promoting maybe a less than positive lifestyle.
I think all of those things were inseminated into modern day uh, advertised and promoted hip hop because I feel that have you heard of the the unknown letter written to hip hop that was like written in the 90s saying there was a letter saying that they're going to try and push towards the messages of prison culture so that people could get arrested to help then keep the private prison industry open in the continent of America. Have you heard of that
Yeah,
letter?
yeah, yeah. I'm familiar with it. I believe Crazy Bone may have spoken about it on one of his interviews. Also, we definitely want to
Yeah.
say thoughts and prayers up to Crazy Bone, who recently overcame some illness. So we hope he's doing
Oh, did
great. But
he? Crazy Bone. Something happened, Crazy Bone?
yeah, I believe he was hospitalized perhaps a few months back now.
Oh, more power to that, brother. We listened to a lot of his music growing up. Shout out to Big Cass. Shout out to Big Cass for Multi Records as well.
No doubt, man. So, yeah, you mentioned that letter, so I didn't want to take you off topic, but yeah, I am familiar with it. It has been spoken about with people who have been in the hip hop industry as well at different levels, levying their thoughts on it. I mean, I do see that there could be some credence to it. I know it's like one of these things that becomes like a myth or a mystery over time. Like some say, like the Willie Lynch letter, or some people say, oh, it's a definite thing, and this was put into play. And some feel as though within that there are some hip hop moguls that perhaps have been more unscrupulous in their dealings with some of these higher global entities than people may have been aware of. Could we be seeing some signs of that now with the Diddy situation, as aforementioned, where people say we've seen some memes, and we can't give credence to a meme, but some memes to suggest, oh, he may have ticked somebody off in the higher ups. Are they coming for him now? Or, but I don't want to focus too much on that. I feel as though sometimes life can just go around and people get their comeuppance. I say that to say somebody like Diddy, who was held in high regard by a lot of people who saw him as a positive figure and a hip hop mogul, and now we're seeing or hearing all these harrowing things coming out. Do you think that there could be then credence to perhaps some of these guys potentially being involved with some of these higher entities to perhaps sway the youth into different destructive ways of thinking and living?
Well, there's a lot there. I mean, one, okay, let's talk about the higher ups. Personally, I've not really looked into Diddy's Diddy's backgrounds of who are the higher ups he deals with. We know about like Leo Cohen and all these other people that are mainly like on Atlantic to Def Jam in that region. But in terms of, well, first off,
I think Diddy, they say it was
let's
it.
give Diddy his credit.
I think with
Diddy
Diddy it
was a
was
gangster who got up in the building because he was an
I
intern.
was
So
just gonna
like,
say I think Diddy started out with Clive Davis. I may be wrong, but I believe he was from that kind of Clive Davis group.
not to make Diddy older than what he is. I was born in '92, so I kind of miss the Bad Boy era. I kind of grew up in the Nelly era. So
Okay.
like I grew up seeing like that stuff. Like I heard about Diddy, I heard about Pac. Like I'd go over to my neighbor's house and "I'll Be Missing You" would be playing, and Diddy's there with Faith Evans. But it was Puff Daddy at the time. It wasn't Diddy.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was Puff Daddy at the time. So like when we're talking about Diddy's in hip hop, Diddy has always been a higher. Look how far Ciroc has gone. Ciroc is here in England. Like, so I don't know who he might have pissed off or so on and so forth. I mean, Diddy's not a small individual. He's a powerful man. So I'm thinking, like, I don't know, like,
Well, there's been reports that his Sean John clothing has been removed from Macy's, and other subsequent organizations have
yeah,
either
apparently he's
severed
stepping
ties
down
with
from
him.
Revolt, and okay, him having to step down from Revolt. That's when I was saying, okay, something big has happened because Revolt has been a big positive like presentation of hip hop culture. They present themselves articulately. They have their conversations articulately. It's not necessary. I'm not slighting No Jumper, but I'm saying you come with a bit of decorum to the Revolt station. Whereas with No Jumper and a few other ones, you don't have to be as formal.
Yeah, I mean it's a well produced show and network. I mean we do hear that Diddy has stepped down. They say temporarily. He could be back very much soon in place. Sometimes it could be a power thing. We do know recently with Vince McMahon in the WWE when it came out that he had allegedly gone through some scandals with some women and stuff. He subsequently, I believe, stepped down, and it sort of led to a restructure of the company. So we don't know, but I don't necessarily want to look at too much because we do hear these horror stories that have came out from Cassie and other women and people that have been around him. But I don't necessarily want to focus too much on his private life per se, but maybe
I would say
utilizing
this. I would
some
say
of
this.
that
I
stuff
don't
that's
think there
happening.
has ever been a leader or a person that is in the public that needs to be the dopamine of a lot of people, still not do something of that type of level because these are not regular people. These are people that have to take into consideration millions and thousands of people's views. And I'm not slighting, I'm not saying if he did or if he didn't. I'm just saying these people go through different things and react different ways.
Yeah,
And
they
the
should
people
be.
that are victims are also people that are of a different standard of living. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
They
they
see
should
things
be
that the regular
judged.
person doesn't see. So I can't speak on those situations. I can just say that they live a different life and they react differently. I'll say the same for people that have military parents.
Yeah, I'd say they should be judged the same way. Nobody's situation should be above anybody else's to say that they shouldn't be held to the same standard of everybody else. He shouldn't have any special
But
privilege.
everyone has a right to not be harmed mentally or physically. Because right now we don't know. Like you said, there's higher ups. We don't know what the hell is going on over there.
I mean, you mentioned a point about him being in the spotlight now. There's a couple of
Look at
ways.
Will.
There's
Like
a
some people would have killed themselves with all
there's
the stuff that's coming out.
I
Will.
mean, there's a couple of ways we could look at these things because there's some people that actively put themselves in the spotlight. Now, granted, they know what comes with it. So, especially somebody like Diddy, one of the biggest criticisms that was on Diddy over the years, primarily from Suge Knight and others at Death Row Records, was about Diddy wanting to be on in the videos in the background dancing. I mean, you mentioned yourself
Yeah.
not being that familiar with him prior, because he was. Some people thought he was just a background guy, like in the background of Big's videos. They didn't actually realize he was the guy behind the whole stuff until things unfolded. I say that to say he has actively pursued to be that sort of person in the figure, in the limelight, and put himself in that sort of position. So I'm sure he knows there's a level of obviously criticism and stuff that's gonna come with it. My thing
But I
is,
think it's an American saying where they say, no publicity is bad publicity. One thing Diddy know how to do is promote.
yeah, yeah, those
One thing
guys,
Diddy know
those
how to do
guys,
is promote Big Bud.
yeah, he work in business. But my point is, like I said, I don't necessarily want to look at the minutia of, and not to minimize the horrors of the allegations if they're true
No,
and the stuff that he committed. But what I'm saying is, I more want to look at, like we was mentioning, the prison aspects and how these things affect
yeah,
with hip hop.
that's. But
Do you think
to
with
add
those
to what you were
do you
saying,
think with those characteristics being questioned in this regard on a personal level, that some of these guys could then be fallible of potentially being a part of that letter that you spoke on? Because you brought this letter up, so I'm just trying to, you know, because a lot of
I
times
don't
people think,
necessarily
a lot of
think
times,
those.
well, here's my point. A lot of times people bring up this letter and they bring up these things, but they then don't actually want to deal with who could actually be these people behind it, or who are these moguls that then, like when you hear the Crazy Bone interview, he said some people were down with it, some people weren't apparently, but who are those guys that were down with it? Nobody wants to extend it to that point. Everybody just wants to say, oh, well, it was
I
this.
mean, I would post a theory that, like, okay, you know how you said what's hip hop? What's hip hop to me? Hip hop to me was very empowering, and it came with a heavy heart when I learned that KRS-One in one of his lectures said that none of us knew that RCA was sponsoring warheads for the Iraq War and all that. So for me, as a person in 2000 to 2003, enjoying all types of hip hop music and all that, I didn't know that us across the world and those in America were being duped into being entertained, but also at the backs of other people dying. So I say that to say, I don't think the people that were in charge like that are Diddy and them. It's bigger than that, because even if they did, what's his name, indirectly fund it, I don't think I don't think once they, for the lack of the better example, paid the plug, asked the plug what they're gonna do with the money. So I think the same people that funded wars are the same people that are making the, well, I think it starts from what they call the American school to prison pipeline. It's just that they added that theory and put it into the music and added it with advertising by advertising alcohol a lot more times. I saw a documentary on Colt 45 and other alcoholic drinks being promoted heavily in America. Those drinks were not sold outside, so I had to do a bit of research on it. So I believe the people that are involved are not the ones who are presenting the culture, but I think it might be the ones that are structurally involved of allowing the culture to exist and then have it in their parameters for them to then poison it.
Yes, I think I get some of the points. You made some points I want to get back to, but I think I get the gist of what you're saying is that pretty much the same thing. You know that there's some kind of higher ups, and these guys are more so working in tandem or fellowship with them in a sense. Perhaps like Star Wars, Chancellor Palpatine and Anakin. He working on the dark side. The Sith, he got. They always got somebody above them. There's a master who's really pulling the strings, but we're just seeing the guy working in tandem with him. I think that's kind of the gist of what you're saying. And you mentioned a point which I thought was quite a heavy charge to Layden, and the music industry promoting war efforts. I think you were saying that, or proceeds from the music industry going into wars. So do you want to speak a bit more about that?
Yeah, personally, that as a African and as a Caribbean that was in the Middle East, so on and so forth, it shows us to how much confusion all of us are in, and how detached we are, and how incoherent we are as different people. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why I was like, wait a minute. Like, so you're telling me my cousin over there, me and my cousin, I'm talking about my FBA cousin or my FBA family or my Jamaican family. So all of us are unknowingly hurting ourselves and others in a way that we are not even able to see. And Saudi's not far from Iraq. Saudi's not far from Yemen. So like you telling me I'm listening to MTV and I'm enjoying these things, but somebody's hearing AK-47s and bombs and all that. Like my kick drum is his bomb.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see some stats on this. I know you said KRS One mentioned it. I mean, my thing is, I'm just trying to see
I
why.
tried to look for stats. I couldn't find any. That's why I was like, that's why I referenced him.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see, where because KRS One, he definitely is a fundamental teacher within hip hop, and but he has said some questionable things in the past, you know. But my point is, I'm just trying to see which way you was looking at it, if it's from a globalistic standpoint or more so that the entertainment industry is something that is a distraction to people from bigger things happening. I know ultimately,
It can be used as a
if
distraction.
we look
I
at
mean, in terms of
if we
hip
look
hop,
at the economics of things, and we can say, we live in this time where we gotta spend money. People gotta spend money. So, you've got your essentials, and outside of that, you may have stuff that you treat yourself to. So, somebody treats themselves to a Starbucks coffee caramel macchiato. They don't feel as though
cappuccino,
they're
whatever.
supporting a war effort. Just like, somebody buys a CD or a tape, they don't feel like they're supporting a war effort. The money, as you said, is going down the line, and obviously, as you said, we could look at the stats and stuff for it. But just if the money does go down the line to potentially other stuff like that, that isn't necessarily on the person who bought it. But are we looking at it then, as you saying, that the industry you feel is a distraction to bigger issues happening in the world?
Yeah, I think it can be, or at least hip hop has been weaponized in that way. I would say hip hop has been
Just hip hop,
weaponized in that
because the labels that you the labels. Oh, he's disappeared. Let's see if we can get him back on the line.
I
Yeah,
don't know what happened there.
yeah, I don't know, man. I was just saying, because you were saying with hip hop, but I was just saying with the labels that you mentioned, or the label, for the most part, none of these. I
I think
mean,
with dancehall as well.
the
Not
industry's
just hip hop, with dancehall as well.
the industry's grown, but what I'm saying is I couldn't see it just being just black music, because all these labels deal with or most multi genres of music, and some of them were predominantly, big labels before these art forms came into fruition, like, like a Sony or an MCA, or some of these labels, they existed as labels prior to when hip hop formed. So I can get if they're saying, okay, money from these labels or these corporations are going these ways, but I don't really get where it seems to be a focus on saying, oh, just on music that's being produced by black people, like hip hop or
Well,
dance. So
well, look at what they promote. I mean, or look at how they police it. For an example, so like for an example, with music, like just not ignorantly putting this comparison up is like music from let's say death metal and other genres that talk about death, suicide, and other things and so on and so. They're not criminalized the same way, or they're not policed the same way hip hop is. Well, that's because there's a direction in what they promote in the streams that they allow hip hop to be in. So, like for an example, they'll criminalize you for being a weed smoker and so on and so forth because they want to criminalize it they want to criminalize it for you as the black person. But if you're for an instance like that movie Alpha Dog, they don't give a fuck.
yeah, no, I get you. So I'm with you. That's a different point though. But I'm you're pointing now at
Because it's a societal thing. Like when you're talking about these genres that are actually stems of a culture. So now we have to think about
Yeah,
what
no, I
happened.
get you, but that's a different point. I was, because you was talking about the war effort and
Yeah, yeah, no,
the money
I was
from these
using that
late.
comparison. Whereas they, in well, for particularly from how we've been presented, they try and criminalize the Black American with hip hop. They don't criminalize, for the lack of a better example, the terrorist white American, the different factions of them. Do you know what I mean? Even though he can be comfortable in whatever genre he's listening to. Apparently, though, at a time, you needed to wear a suit in order to not get shot by a police officer in America. Like that's a fucking dumb narrative. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we did.
So to bring it back to the industry. So now I'm talking about how these streams or these platforms criminalize one area and don't criminalize another. So let's say all of them are in cahoots with just distributing music. Whether they're criminalized one or the other, at the end of the day, some people are cool with the fact that they're going over and destroying anybody, so on and so forth. Like, I mean, that's why Dick Cheney was such an issue on a global scale, because Brits hate this guy Dick Cheney because of what he's done, so on and so. Like when we talk about the establishment is funneling money for it to do something bad to people that not necessarily the citizens want that to happen, but some are cool with it, and some citizens that are not cool with it are criminalized.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's different, I guess, ways of looking at things. We've had the system has its part to play in how it
Yeah.
affects black people, but obviously, it sounded like there was some anti-American tropes, but America was also the birthplace of hip hop. So how do we get?
No,
No, no, hold up.
again.
How do we get this birth of hip hop amidst all the struggle and stuff? Do you want to speak to just that formation? I don't need to go into like be a hip hop historian or anything, but I just more want to focus on the creative aspect of how hip hop was still formed under these duressive conditions.
Because hip hop was formed because Greater America keeps kicking down Little America, and then Little America bossed up. I've got something now. Well, here's the thing: the narrative has been, from a hip hop narrative, it's people having a media presence. It's not like Little America has always had its thumb down on indigenous Black Americans. They just don't tell you when the indigenous Black Americans have won. So that's why, like, on the spectrum of media and the spectrum of representation from the 80s to the 90s to the early 2000s was, I'd say, a good time where it wasn't presenting violence all the time. That's why I don't want to blame the West Coast for gangsterism in hip hop. No, there was gangster music all over. It just happened to be they presented NWA, and then they blamed gangsterism on NWA. That's why I said later on there was Souls of Mischief. There's what's his name? Del the Funky Homie 7, Deltron 3030. Like, there's other things there. Like, you don't have to blame that, but we didn't have control over media like that. And people who did have control over media had got into beef. For an example, Benzino and The Source and all of that. Like, so the one time we did have some, I'm not using The Source as the only thing, but I'm saying going back in time, yeah, you did have platforms, but we had too many internals. Black people had too many internals, or like indigenous people had too many internals for it to continue and then hold their narrative.
So, okay. So fast forward into where we're at now, with
Yeah.
what we're seeing with just modern day hip hop. What do you think has transitioned or changed? Because if we're looking at how things started to begin with, and say there was more of a focus on social commentary and oppressive issues and sort of speaking out, and a lot of people herald Public Enemy quite high and Chuck D and Fight the Power and all that good stuff. What do you think has happened and now to the hip hop that we're seeing? Or are you just charging it more so with it being a question of marketing and that kind of aspect of the industry promoting and marketing stuff that it desires more so over just what the fundamentals initially was?
For my detection, from what I detect, it seems like hip hop has gone from being a community thing to can I sell to the community? Whereas everybody, like, for an example, you see a lot more individualism in hip hop now, rather than the aspect of we're all in this together, whether we're losing or whether we're winning. Like, I think there's a lot more separation, and I think that's not due to hip hop. I think that's due to us being more of a technocratic society, being involved with technology, having our Game Boy is now our computer. You know what I mean? And I think that's desensitized us a lot more and has made us realize we can reach more people to gain rather than reach more people to connect. That's why people are always advertising. People are always coming to you to trying to sell something or buy something or finesse something rather than just having a genuine human connection. And I feel like that's what's happened. But having said that, there's a lot more R&B and a lot more soul that's being produced and made, but hip-hop folk are not looking at that right now. I think they've marginalized the mentality of, well, they've tried to marginalize the mentalities that would focus on hip-hop and try to give people an idea of what a hip-hop listener is. Because now people think drill is hip-hop. No, drill is a subset. There's hip-hop. But some people now, when you say hip-hop, they just think drill.
Yeah, I do get you with just that expansion of things. You made a point about, I guess, people being somewhat off of themselves a bit more as opposed to having that sort of unity together, and people do feel that's missing with, some. We've seen 50 years of hip hop this year, some celebrations with, people coming together, but some say they feel as though hip hop needed that kind of big structure of people coming together to support each other. We did see recently Nas and a few others, could be Steve Stout, I believe, had come together and put together some type of support fund, which they say will support like veterans of hip hop who perhaps didn't make as much money financially in one way that they should have or could have. And I believe they awarded Scarface and Rakim $500,000 each.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
Shout out to Nas and the brother that's with him. Yo, that's cool.
Nas, Steve Stout, and there's a white guy, I can't remember his name as well. So, the people are coming together doing stuff together as well, which should definitely be celebrated. But, that point that you made, though, I do feel as though I see that a lot within the community and sometimes within hip hop, where there is this
nice to be acknowledged. Imagine one day one of your homies just calls you and says, "Yeah, I got 500,000 for you because I've been seeing you doing the work since day one." That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of made me lose my train of thought right there.
Apologies.
It doesn't happen often, but
I never heard that story before.
Yeah, I do believe it was a recent turn of events.
Peer acknowledgement. That's cool.
Yeah, I mean, giving back is important, and you made the point about people coming together and in just unification, which I think is important. Sometimes that is missing. I think nowadays with just the boost of celebrityism and just the industry where it's at, where I think the point you made was people are, now looking at what they can sell to each other or what they can make off the community as opposed to, make with or for the community. So, it's a lot of people, selling ideas or themselves to, put themselves above others. And in turn, I can't judge anybody's actions, but they probably aren't necessarily helping those people anymore. They're just trying to exalt themselves over them. So there is a lot of that, I think, in the industry now where we do see that kind of selfishness. And I think the internet has definitely played a part in that, because at one stage, I think people were more compelled to work with each other, even if it was just by necessity that they needed other people to, fill in the other positions and do stuff. Whereas now we live in times where you can sort of do things on your own. There's so much automation, there's so much other aspects of things, even just putting things out yourself and doing things where it alleviates the need of then needing to work with others. But I think people can forget then that there are important roles and positions that others can play and things that they can do that when you come together you can kind of balance and help each other. But I think nowadays the technology doesn't really help things. I mean, what do you think with that being said?
I mean, that was a it was a long question, but
You need me to repeat it?
yeah, repeat that one because
You made the point where you were saying that people are, trying to sell everything to each other and just, I guess, looking at our overall selfishness, what there is. I was saying I feel as though that's been exasperated by the use of technology and certain things now where it alleviates the opportunity for people to come together and one person do one thing and somebody do one thing and somebody do something else, where they needed to do that more so before out of necessity because there wasn't so much technology that enabled people to do so much now for themselves. Even if we're just looking at the music industry, at one point you couldn't self-release your own music or put music out on certain mediums that were equivalent to the industry unless it was going through a certified label. In order to do that, you needed to be solicited, you have your music go through a certain process for an A&R to even listen to it. So, there was all these processes, and by necessity, you might then need a manager, or then need somebody else, or then need somebody to do this. But nowadays, with technology, there's so much where people can do things themselves. So I was saying, do you think that that has an impact, like I was saying on the
it has, because what's happened is back in the day, people came to the job role only wanting to do their job. Whereas, for an example, I was taking the time to watch many different documentaries on like bands that were before me. So like Metallica, I was watching Celine Dion's the makings of her album. And what I've noticed about those old school folk is that everyone came together because they knew they were putting bricks to a castle. Whereas now everyone is like, this is my castle. And rather than having someone help them, they'd rather suffer on their own, yeah, or swindle someone to help them and fuck them over. And that's why I realized those albums that they've made back when were actually kind of timeless, because it was everyone coming together because they wanted to do their specific roles individually at the best way. Now everybody wants to be the star and get the credit and not give the credit. And it doesn't work that way.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So, and to add to the point about the marketing, a lot of different cultures have been able to use social media. And right now there's not really a criteria of what's the word I'm looking? There's not really a criteria of standard in terms of morality or anything. When you're on the internet, you're on the internet right now. So
especially if you're an ex.
Say that again.
Oh, I was just saying, especially if you're on X, Elon Musk platform, formerly Twitter.
Yeah, you know what I mean. It's X now. It's not even Twitter. It's X now. So that has become a thing, and other cultures have now used hip hop to present themselves, and they might not necessarily be for the hip hop culture. So when I say hip hop culture, I'm talking about the consistent creation of a sound of a genre. So like I'm talking about the fact that you're using the MPC, you're using the formats of the 4/4 time signature, you're using patterns that came under this subgenre. You know, whether it be the Southern style of making beats, whether it be the Midwest style, the G-Funk style, or the sample-based New York style. So that's, for me, hip-hop for me is the as a producer, as a beat maker, is the digital language of every place that was in America that was used by these folk that had technology. So for me, it's the genre continues if you still use those formats.
Yeah, I mean, some people do speculate where do they feel the genre is going just with the current state of music. Sometimes I think I remember a point when hip hop used to be about rapping, and there was a level of emphasis on rapping and the skills that you possess and displayed as an artist. I think nowadays you've got quote
Now
unquote
it's about
hip
individualism
hop
from
or
what I detect. It's not really about rhythm and poetry skills. It's about if I'm able to sell this moment that will help you buy this object. They've become people rather than people of soul.
yeah, pretty much. And that's we've seen that happen, and I think I'd I'd probably agree on this instance with it happening probably more so within hip hop than other genres in some of that capacity because just looking at the fundamentals of hip hop and how it was created and started and just as you said how it's sort of more so utilized now as a sales funnel and the level of individuality has definitely been taken out of artistry where every artist before had a unique delivery, story, message. I mean, somewhat they may touched on the same things, from their perspective, but there was no mistaking the difference between one artist from another because they had a unique and identifiable sound, style, and delivery, which I feel nowadays
The
people don't
consumer
really.
and the creator have changed in recent times.
Yeah, people want the same stuff now where they more so just I noticed that with especially with in the UK with like the grime and then the so called trap or whatever because people getting into it. It wasn't like how it was with hip hop in the early days and with the real artistry where you could see somebody getting into it and displaying their own skill and their own sort of individuality within that. It was more so becoming on the basis of people being accepted within it due to their ability to either replicate something that was already done in the same pretty much same manner. It was like if you can spit this like this, people will nod their head and say it's good. And so people were using the same rhyme patterns, the same cadence, the same flow, the same everything, and but it was more of a tick box thing as opposed to, okay, if you tick these boxes, we'll accept you good based on these parameters. And as you said, often there's a sales funnel or a pitch at the end, and I did notice that happened a lot more so, especially within the UK music, leading to where we see things now.
Hmm. You see, what I see is that people have stopped caring about the artistry of music and they care about money. Now, it's not a bad thing to care about money, but here's the thing. You've made this art in order to sell money rather than see if if you have, when I say value, are you doing enough to make your music an event rather than you're just an individual that is making music. So when I say are you making your music an event, are you when I say for this example, back when hip hop was a lived thing, these people came out to these parties. These people at night would go out and spray paint. These people at these parties would DJ, or these people would be out on the corner, yet telling you things in an eloquent way of speaking because you wouldn't listen to your school teacher or somebody. You wouldn't listen to your uncle or so on and so forth. But this guy who spoke about things you didn't know in an eloquent way got your attention. Put all of that together comes the genre of hip hop documented in a CD.
Yeah, I think
So like it's you, going back to the go back to the question. So because I know that I said that to lead to a point.
yeah, no. I don't mind you building and adding on. When I was just talking about like let's say things with the UK or not just the UK, some of this newer stuff where it's become more cookie cutter And
Yeah. So
and
when I said
you,
that,
no, yes, no, I'm gonna let you get back to it. I just want to expand a bit while it's fresh in my mind.
go ahead,
But
go ahead.
because you mentioned just people now being more so focused on money,
Just selling
and
something
we
rather
do, and we
than
do know that the world functions around money, is whether we agree or not how things are at the minute. But I do agree that a true artist is not motivated by money in the slightest. A true artist can't be bought or sold. I mean, sure, you could put an industry around them, but them themselves, they're priceless. And I remember an old interview with Jimi Hendrix, and it could be Glastonbury, one of those big festivals he did, and I remember they interviewed him and they were speaking to him, and he was Jimi Hendrix was a great artist in himself, very vocal on a lot of social issues and stuff too. But um, they asked him just about him performing, and he was expressing that he was appreciative of being an artist and getting to travel to different places and see, meet new people. For most artists, that was the big thing, the kicker. But when he came to speaking about the money, he says, he doesn't believe in or this so called big money thing, and he believes, like, you want to bring an artist out for a show or whatever, you bring them out, those minimal things, taking care of their travel, where they gotta stay, certain things. It wasn't about, I want a big fat paycheck. Now I say all that to say, the true artists, that's how they've always been, could have been about connecting with people and their music and stuff. But other people put the industry around them, like these promoters, and started charging big money and taking big money and for artists, and still happens to this day. So you see some of these big tours, there's a lot of big money behind it, and it's not necessarily the artists. The artists may walk away with a good portion if they got a good business structure and stuff, but a lot of times, the tour concerts, whoever putting them on,
This is
they
where
gonna make the
I'm
money.
gonna say I think business and art don't go together. This is a very wild statement for me to say, but here's why. Because I honestly believe true art is meant to be appreciated, and the reciprocation of that appreciation is beyond money. Now, it can come as money. I'm not negating that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
I'm saying some people only look for the money,
Yeah, I agree.
but then some people don't look for access.
When you say they don't look for access, in what capacity do
So
you mean?
here's an example. Some people are like, "Here's my CD. It's for $10, right?" Or here's my CD, and someone says, "Okay, I can give you $10, or I can give you an opportunity, yeah, to sell 100 of these, and so on and so forth, yeah. You'll just get, what's his name? You'll just get $8 a piece. I've got all of that, and so on and so forth. Just come to my event." That's access.
Yeah, you talking like these labels and they're making a cut. I say, you know what? Give me my $10 in my hand, bro. I don't want. If you talking business, we gonna do some business. But otherwise,
There's some people. See, for me,
yeah, no,
I look at
I'm
access.
with you.
Yeah. No, I understand.
I'm
No,
just joshing.
it's a given. No, some people. What's his name? Some people are like that. They're like they'd rather their money there and then. For me, I'm thinking like, yeah, I can make them 10. I can make that $10.
Yeah, I
I can
mean
make that $8. But I'm thinking,
yeah,
I've never been to that venue before.
it just depends what it is. Back in the days, we used to have street teams and stuff like that, and that's how it was.
Yeah, that's gone. The internet has
We'd hit
destroyed
the
that.
different towns and stuff, and that's how it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you said, the internet changed.
Like, with everyone wanting to be in this global community, the only way that you can actually make people, not to make them feel like they're not a part of, but the only way to make them feel like they need to be more is for them to see you with the community, or with whatever grouping you want to be a part of, together on the screen. And that brings us back to us being human again. Because it's not us trying to front and do things from the screen, because the people are together in the screen, in real life. And I think that's where we have we have to step back.
Well,
a bit
I
from.
think that's what people always dug about hip hop, especially the early days.
Yeah, in the early
We
days
know
they did.
it was primarily created by blacks, and we know But even going back, we saw just within those arenas, whether it's the clubs, the streets, certain things. It wasn't just all black people in them. There was other groups. We see even like
Yeah, yeah,
as
yeah,
much as some
yeah.
people separate when they get bigger. Like I always felt as like Fat Joe back in the day. He's always be around black people and stuff, and some will argue that he black as well, but he was around DITC and everybody, and everybody was all in it together, and the bigger he got, he kind of I guess just went more with his group and stuff. But I ain't mad at him or nothing about it. But I say that to say, just in those days, there was that visual look where people from other groups could see, like with hip hop, it was like there was a representation of all beings of the universe and planet Earth, just representing that, had that universal flag and that element.
I would. This is, and I would like for anyone to correct me if I'm wrong. I detected that the FBA narrative is more of a nationality thing rather than it being solely an ethnic thing. Because how I look at it as a Caribbean person, yeah, even though Fat Joe might be lighter and so on and so forth, I look at all the Caribbeans as one. But when I look at the Caribbeans as one, they are also North American islands, the same way as Madagascar is an African island. So for me, I kind of look
Yeah,
at.
it's a class. It's a, it's not difficult when we're looking at obviously race and classification, especially in today's times. But quote unquote, I guess some of us from the community or the diaspora, we may look at the Spanish or the Puerto Ricans or Dominicans, certain people, and say, yeah, they part of the Caribbean, or they part of, they got black ancestry, and some of them will say they're Afro, and will have the black sort of side in that aspect. But nobody, I don't think, ultimately looks at them and says, you black, like when we're talking like
Yeah,
how they,
because it's more of a nationality
because they have
narrative.
their nationality. So that's what I'm saying. I ain't mad at them, because some of them they was in the early trenches with black people and stuff. But obviously, as societies and things developed, they did probably progress more into just sticking with their nationality as well. And
I found it amazingly odd in New York, like when I hear of accounts that in New York that Caribbeans didn't really have a good relationship with FBAs, because I honestly thought that, for my take, because remember, I grew up in Saudi, for my take, I would have thought that everyone on the American continent would have assumed themselves or assimilated themselves as Americans. However, when you speak to Canadians, Caribbeans, and Americans, they differentiate themselves by nationality
yeah, I
rather than
think
continentally being the same.
America's a place, especially in the earliest points of people going there. They had to fight to even just establish who they are themselves, because you're looking at a landmass where a lot of people know they migrated or came there, and there was a lot of separatism. To some degree there still is, and but definitely on scales where people are fighting for their own identification and just
I was told that prejudices are taught in America. This is an American who told me this. He said, America, prejudices are taught.
yeah, I wouldn't really agree with that. I mean, anybody
Yeah,
could
that might have been his experience.
yeah, anybody could say he could say that, 10 people could say that, 10 people could say otherwise. It's like he just I guess that's his opinion, but I wouldn't say that as a not from an institutional level. I think prejudices are taught in society, period, and I think all of us by nature have a tendency or a predisposition to
I
prejudge.
think that's also taught. I don't think.
Well,
I don't think
I think it's taught by
we.
it's taught as in it goes into our minds, because I think a lot of
I
people,
think we
for
see
instance.
someone do something and then
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean,
yeah,
people use
like
this
that's
in
where.
the argument of, can black people be racist, and some people say they can't, because racism is prejudice plus power. So I've even had white lecturers in universities in the UK teach the same stuff to classes, and some of them have been shocked or find it aberrant, but they don't understand, that aspect of it. So I think when we look at it from that dynamic, it says anybody can be prejudiced, and for the most parts, most people are. Some of the issues we're seeing even in the modern world right now are down to people having their prejudices towards each other and stuff. And
I think I think to answer that person's question, can black people be racist? I mean, in a situation where they have where they are the top heavy power. Yes, but it's not been that in the last how many years?
Yeah, I mean, that's that.
It's not been that in the last how many hundreds of years.
Yeah, so they definitely can be prejudiced, and I think so America definitely has its share of prejudices as well. So
As does England. Like they just conduct it differently.
yeah, everywhere around the world, I think there's one place you gotta go where man exists that you don't encounter some of these same issues. As you said, sometimes they're just
There's reverse prejudice in Africa, whereas they'll rather serve a person who's not black as opposed to a person who is black. Like there's
well, I
that
mean
too
that
on the
isn't that
African
is,
diaspora.
and technically that isn't even reverse prejudice. That's still prejudice. The reason
Well,
I
yeah,
get the reason you
yeah.
said reverse is because these people have coined a term called reverse racism, which isn't actually it's a pseudo scientific term, but they use it to say, well, I've experienced a prejudice, which is in effect reverse racism, but there isn't really no reverse racism and or reverse prejudice in that aspect. You can be prejudiced. They would then just be prejudiced to black people. You can be black and
Uh,
prejudiced to black people
uh,
too.
well, that would be self prejudice, isn't it? Like that
Well,
that's
you
self
don't even have to
hatred.
put.
That's what I
Well,
said on the last time. Like a lot
yeah.
of us have self hatred. A lot of the African diaspora and a lot of black people, not speaking for everyone, suffer with a form of self hatred of some sort.
And I mean, you could call it South hate, or you could just call it hate because
Yeah,
when I say I say South when it afflicts yourself. It's like you got some crazy people out there that will never harm themselves, but they'll harm other people. So they're more of a threat to other people. So I think
I
you
would
do have
present that we are all one human body, and I feel that if you would harm another one just cause, it's also a harm to yourself. Like I'm not saying it's a staple, but I'm thinking like the greater aspect of like going from a saying of like killing one human is like killing all of them. That's why I think like the de-escalation method is the better method to go forward nowadays. But things are being pushed in hip hop, as we're talking about hip hop, to be more self-centered and more I'm a gun-toting individual that will defend himself. But nobody's really trying to attack you at this point. Case specific. Case specific.
yeah, no, I'm with you. There's always a different element of things that happen in society encompass. Some people argue if there wasn't some of these issues in society, would people be able to make music about it, or is it a byproduct of life imitating art or art imitating life? Sometimes it could be a fine line between the two. I don't want. I want to go off on the limb slightly here and say I may agree to some extent of just when you say like if one person harms another person, it's like harming of the same body and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can agree to that just from my own
Experience.
outlook, from how I see just people in humanity. Yeah, I think as though because the amount of
Nefarious and
things
malevolent
that
people
people
that
have
have done that. I understand.
that have done to to no literal end in that kind of aspect. So I'm sort of like, well,
No, yeah, no, obviously. Like, remember, my pops told me this. People think demons are big, but it's angels that are mighty. So, like, I understand where you're coming from.
yeah.
I would advise people be on angel time and not demon time because, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, we definitely don't play that demon time right here.
Nah, bro, like, it's funny, like, it's funny because you know when have you ever watched the cartoon where they have demons? It's a hero beating a demon, and it's like you never, as a kid, wanted to be that. How come people are using that narrative now in hip hop? There's a lot of interesting things that have changed in hip hop because at one point let's talk about substance misuse in hip hop. The substance misuse in hip hop now has become opiates, and since when have black people taken opiates like that?
Yeah, I mean, you've always got to have like one thing is like you said, I guess just to people succumbing to what may could be considered the dark side, like you said in those cartoons, who wanted to be the demon. It's sort of like Star Wars, the story of Anakin Skywalker. He didn't really want to be Darth Vader, but he became him by being consumed by the darkness.
Yeah.
And he turned to the dark side of the Force, and he was kind of manipulated and coerced. However, using that as like a tail, I think that's what happens with a lot of people. Like it's saying there, you got the different polarities that exist, and one couldn't really exist without the other, the light without the dark. So it's like, I think by prerequisite, you got to have some people that are going to be swayed that way. I think what we've just seen is a severe case of misbalance, especially if it's just misbalance in the way that it's been presented to us, because I
Mm.
do feel there is a counterbalance at the same time. We do know,
I
there
mean,
are
like
there are pure
the
artists
narratives are very
and
different. Like,
people out there making stuff that's contrary to that. But you were saying about the narrative.
yeah, the narratives are very different. I mean, like as a kid, okay, we're talking about 50 years of hip hop. So from a kid, let's talk about the Disney era. You know what I mean? If you've ever watched Pocahontas, like they say they're savages, savages. Like, and now people are like, you want to be a savage, you want to be a demon. I mean, like nobody ever knew. Like it's like girls coming out saying they want to be the Wicked Witch in Snow White rather than being Snow White. Like you want to be Ursula, you want to be Maleficent. Like
Well,
that's your
that's it.
goal in life now.
Yep, some people do, man. That's why I mentioned Anakin Skywalker, because he had the training around the Jedi. He was around them. They was teach. He could see. But he was attracted to the dark side of the Force. Like some people, when they watching, I'll go to wrestling, sports entertainment. Which has been known to have a protagonist and an antagonist, typically a good
Wrestling,
guy,
yeah.
a bad guy.
The WWE.
And what they noticed in a period, what they call the Attitude Era, where it was, the mid to late 90s, going forward to the early millennium, a lot of the preliminary good guys, the crowd just wasn't accepted. The crowd was, cheering the bad guys. They were cheering people that had a bit more edge to their character. So I
They
think
cheer in
there's,
the ring and they cheer in the bad guy.
yeah, I think there could be something to be said in the psyche, that there's because sometimes not everything's all black and white. Now we do know some people can commit some acts that we might find horrendous and heinous, but people might celebrate them for another regard. It's like when we look at mafia movies and certain things where everybody's a fan of the guy. He's probably the you might have killed a few people or some stuff, but they like his character, or they like his integrity or something, or whatever it is. So I think there's a whether it's a cult, as just utilizing it as it's in its aspect of the word hidden. There's maybe an unseen aspect of man that has a liking to either good or bad. So I think some people either just lean too much into it sometimes, or it might just attract them. They watching that Snow White, as you said. They might not be looking at Snow White. They might be the one who's looking like the wrestling fan and say, "Hey, I like that Wicked Witch. I like how she
That's a different kid right there.
damn, yeah, some
Like, yeah, I know what he's doing. I'm
those
already
those
fucking with
those
you.
yeah, those are kids that's like Killmonger. I'm gonna bring it to date. That's like Killmonger and Black Panther. You're gonna have the ones some
Yeah,
feel
but
as though.
something happened to Killmonger. He was abandoned. I'd love for there to be a backstory movie
Well, I
just
mean,
for
not even
Killmonger.
just him as a character. I mean, just taking him as a character, where he would be, pitched as, I guess, the bad guy. He pitched as a good guy. Even with that, they wanted to see to an extent who people would favor or go towards, and some people they empathize more with Killmonger.
No, to be honest, he didn't go. He didn't go about his mission. Well, he was technically working for the CIA in the movie. So he didn't necessarily go about bringing Wakanda back. But I could understand his strength. When you said about a cult, like hidden aspects, I think with all of these movies and characters, what people like about them is the fact that these characters have their own sense of authority and their own sense of backing it up, as well as not also being outward destruction without, well, to the characters, a level of necessity.
Yeah, I
I think
mean,
that's what it is.
people like to live vicariously through others, and I think oftentimes, even though sometimes we watch these things and it's entertainment to suspend our disbelief, people do like to. I mean, if you're seeing something as an example, they in some degree you're putting yourself in that position because you think, what would I do if that was me? It's a horror movie. You see the person walking down the pitch black alley and they're about to go down the corner into this house, and the ghost or the axeman or whatever is there, and you're watching it, but you thinking to
Yeah, go ahead.
yourself like, I'll be right, whatever you thinking. So to a degree, you sort of putting yourself in the position of the person while
You
you're
walk
watching it
down
and
the
stuff
alley, it's
also.
Freddie and Jason Turner.
You know. Yes. So slightly off topic, because they did a cut of that one of those Jason movies online with, I think it could be Jason 3, and there's a black guy who has a punch up with him, and they clipped it and put it online and said, the only person ever in history to run the fade with Jason was a black man. Because everybody else ran, but he was trying to run the fade with him, and he was standing, he was punching him up for about a good minute or so, and then Jason just
He's like, you're not getting me today.
chopped his head
Not
off.
in the dream and not
Yeah,
in real life.
chopped his head off. But I say that to say, just like you said, it's the same thing. So, just like you saying with Killmonger, people look at some of these characters and want to, have that vicarious sense. The difference is some people, they know there's a limit. It's kind of like,
Yeah, yeah,
they,
yeah.
they may
There's
not
a
go out in
difference.
society and they're not going to do certain things themselves, but they could, get behind the idea of, hey, way to go, that guy stood up for himself or his people or whatever. But so I think there's an element of that, but I think with other people there is an element of just sometimes just
You,
more a
I,
deeper
I,
malevolence that
I
comes.
read an article where, speaking. I read an article. I can't. I wish I could remember who it was by, that where spoke about the whole dynamics of the Black Panther movie, and it was saying what it was pointing to was disconnection, and it was talking about the disconnection between all of the diaspora. So when I watch that movie, and there's this primarily African kid who's been abandoned by his African family and left to be in America with all the situations like an American. That's why I'd say it would be an amazing backstory to see this
Yeah,
African kid.
I don't know if they'll do, because I mean, to be fair, his from how the story is, just like he grew up in the streets in the states, didn't just grew up in the state. He didn't really,
But think about the mentality
got
of
into
him
his
knowing that he's from something that he can't talk about, and to the point whereby he's now come back to destroy it.
yeah, but that's
Like,
that's what made it mad, because it's people's. This is why I go to Anakin Skywalker and Star Wars, because
you think you're Anakin, and well,
what they continuously portrayed and pointed out with Anakin was he had certain gripes and the little things, and he was constantly warned by the Jedi's. Now this is in a metaphorical sense, but they were warning him, be mindful of your thoughts, because fear and resentment and certain of these things, once they they can fester and lead into a deeper chasm of a downward spiral. So it's similar when you say with Killmonger, even though we didn't visually see that, that's what was presented. That having those kind of thought processes, that's what we know ultimately develops to that kind of mindset and psychosis where you can then slip into the dark side. And that was the story of Anakin. Because even he was Darth Vader, he was always still trying to come back, because and then in the end, he kind of, before he died as Darth Vader, he come out and say, he tells Luke he's his father or whatever, blah, 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 blah. But he kind of, found a bit of solace then at the end, but he had got consumed by the darkness. And that's what happens with, things can happen, but when people get consumed by it, and they may not have the right outlets and stuff. That's why hip
they
hop was
need
always an
to
outlet.
have the hubris and Icarus story, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, that's
don't go too far or your wings will melt. And well, in his case, he died. Where in these guys' case, they went to the dark side.
yeah, well, very very true. And I think this is why hip hop in the early days was a way for people to kind of express themselves and get some of these, in the alchemical process, get some of these feelings and emotions out in a non-destructive way, where they necessarily didn't have to go out and engage in certain of the other more destructive ways of doing things. Like we've heard stories of like the dance battles and stuff, and people battling in different ways as opposed to physical violence and street violence. So not to say it was perfect by any stretch, but it was those principles of just getting the energy out in different ways and stuff, and not being consumed by your surroundings and your environment and stuff in a negative way, which we ultimately see. I think one of the I did, I was quite fond of the character Killmonger, though, and especially, Michael B. Jordan's performance of him in the movie.
Yeah, no, he
One
played
of
that
one of my
character very,
favorite
very well.
scenes was I like little quirky scenes and little quirky bits of dialogue. So one of my
You mean
favorite
the entry scene when he was like that it's Wakandan?
Come again?
You mean the entry scene when he was at the museum and he was like, "It's Wakandan and I'll take it from you," and she was like, "What?"
Well, close, because it was at the museum, but it was after he had did all of that. But it was there was another point, so they still at the museum, and he's looking at like a mask, or I guess that went out to be the mask he took, but he looking at a mask in the window, and I think he either snatched the mask or he goes to take it, and the guy who's with him looks at him and says, "Oh, is that vibranium too?" And he's like, "Nah, I'll just feeling it," But he said it so. It was an impeccably delivered line at the right time. It was very poignant, and because even if it was on some black shit, like, nah, I'm just feeling it. But it's like he was repping for the culture at the same time. So I was like, that to me was a standout scene. You know what I mean?
I appreciate all of the actors and those who bring their own quirk to it. Like Johnny Depp, there was a scene in one of the Pirates of the Caribbean, and he was walking away. He said, like, "Yeah, I'm having a lovely tea party, and you're not invited." That was nowhere in the script. He made that up himself.
Well, there you go. You got to improvise, be able to bring like some elements of your character, because it's like we saying, just in that vicariousness in some sense. When you see something like else, like some shit that it could have been some shit you would have said, or even if it's some stuff that you probably wouldn't have said, but it's just you can appreciate what was said. You know what I mean? And how,
and I feel like that's where
and the timing
artistry really is, and I think it's that little appreciation, and I feel like that's what a lot of musicians today are forgetting.
Well, they're not real musicians, the real. It's like
Whoa, Sir Fonzi, you just slapped a whole bunch of people with it. Some of them don't know this though.
Yeah, that's they.
He said they're not real musicians. Whoa, Fonzi,
I mean,
want to thank you and me.
I mean, I know plenty real musicians, bro. I'm respected by plenty, all sorts of fields, not even just rap, all sorts of genres, everything, And that's the thing, they respect, and even with them, we can have conversations about people within their own genres that they will say, and even real musicians or whatever, because there's levels to this shit. It kind of like it's like kung fu, man. It's like there's levels to just skill and martial arts. Even when you used to see the martial art, it weren't no poppy show thing. There was about it was acquiring a certain level and moving down the line, and they work and they skill will always speak for itself. You know what I mean? So I think even being a musician is something that's integral to people
no, definitely, and I think that definitely, and I think like things like that, like if you're able to live in that moment and present music with that intention, like, yo, I love that, and I think that's what makes music human. Because speaking of current events, how do you, well, not to interview the interviewer, how do you feel about this narrative as a musician? People saying AI would replace human beings. I think that is utter BS, sir.
I think it can. I mean, I'm kind of here for it.
I don't think it can, because I'll tell you this. I mean, for me, I don't know why.
It sounds bad as an artist. It can't trump like real creativity from a human. But some of the stuff some of the stuff it can do is, at the same time, is leaps and bounds above what some other humans can do, and then yeah, it can do quite a lot. I think it can be utilized by musicians and stuff as well for creativity. It can just
Can
use
I
it.
can I give you a little insight on how we grew up and what gives me a little bit of strength in saying I don't believe that it will replace human beings. We didn't grow up in
Well, I don't
I don't
mean,
know
yeah. When
deep
I
heaven.
when I say that, I just mean more from an industry level. And I don't mean it as like it's
Oh,
gonna
okay, yeah, 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 yeah.
as like AI will take over human beings and the robots and that kind of stuff. I mean, things could come dangerously close, but at the same time, no, I'm more mean as within like the industry, because I've tested some stuff for Google AI test kitchen, certain other AI bots, automation, text to audio generators that can produce beats just based on you typing in the text of what you want, and it will ultimately replace a lot of aspects of human activity. And I say that in a way where I say I welcome it, because if it takes away from some of the oversaturation in some aspects, because then only the I don't say only the cream should rise to the top, but only those who are really capable and effective at really being creative and implementing some of this technology can probably push it to a different parameter. But others will then just get lost in the shuffle of it, and I think as though that ain't necessarily a bad thing, because I think too much saturation has happened anyway, where people aren't necessarily doing things from a because it's everybody got the choice to do what they want to do, but they just trying to be famous or trying to get whatever they trying to get, and all that rest of that stuff. So I think if it minimizes some of those kind of people in those positions, the ambulance chasers of the industry, then yeah, let the computer do it. I've spent years even running independent stuff, having to work with independent graphic designers, and certain people don't want to pull their finger out and
How do
mess.
they feel about AI being able to generate images? Because it's really the digital artists that are suffering
Yeah,
in
I
that
mean
aspect.
some of them are scared. I mean, like I said, the real ones ain't really worried.
Are they? Do they have a genuine fear of this?
I mean, the real ones ain't worried, but the as I said, the old ones that saturate the market, they're gonna be worried, because they can't be an ambulance chaser anymore, trying to hound
I was
people.
around some graphic designers, a young brother from London. He was around here, and he was showing me AI photos and all that. And honestly, how I look at it is like this: hey, I would feed all my music to the AI, come up with a song like me. Now I can battle me just so I can get better.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's how you use the technology. So some people are fearful, some people could use it.
That's how I'm looking at it. I'm
Yeah,
like, I'd love to battle me and win.
you can use it for for production samples to tighten up on things. Yeah,
Yeah, it's the best mirror there is. You can go head to head with it. I didn't know I could. If I feed it a whole bunch of my stuff and it comes out with something I could come out with, and I didn't know I could come out with that, guess what? I can come out with something different now.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to exactly follow it dot to dot. You can use it.
I'll be like, thank you, AI. Now I know how to beat you because now you showed me something that I couldn't do that I could do. I just couldn't see it myself.
Exactly. If you, it's just like any bot or droid, that's what they should be there for.
Exactly. That's why I'm like, no. I honestly feel when some people talk about AI, it really, really, really irks me because I'm like, bro, it's a tool, not a god.
I mean, everything has its positive and negative.
Yeah, how they speak about it is
And some
like they've
people they
got rid
just
of the Almighty himself. But anyway.
they just pessimistic. I mean, there are
Nihilism is big in the UK, huh?
there are legitimate concerns and there are legitimate dangers.
There are. There's a book I recommend people check out. It's by a guy called Dr. Yuval Harari, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, and he talks about the dangers of AI. It's a very good book. It's a heavy hitter.
But
If
if
a person
something is
doesn't usually read books, this is a heavy hitter.
But I was just gonna say, if something's deemed as dangerous, it isn't necessarily bad,
Yeah, no, just because it's how you use it.
Of course, you have a I'm sure you have a knife in your house.
Kitchen, one in the kitchen to chop onions and feed people. Yeah.
I mean, precisely. A knife is
Exactly.
can be labeled as dangerous, but a knife can be used to cut stuff. It can be used to prepare food,
It can
to
be
cut
used as
bread,
a marauding object.
and it can be used to take somebody's life. Unfortunately, to kill
Exactly.
somebody. So
Definitely, which is a very horrible way to take someone's life.
it's how you use the tool or the technology. So there are pros and cons. As I said, you can cite dangers just like you could cite a danger with a knife. A knife is a dangerous thing. So some things they are made and then they do have a sharp edge to it. I think AI definitely may have a sharp edge, but it's also cutting edge at the same time. Oh, see what I did there.
He said, "Ooh, see what I did there? Go on, Fonzie. Go on, Fonzie."
And I
What
look,
else?
I look,
What else is there on in going on in the well? It's the techno the hip the technocratic hip hop society, because now hip hop has transcended the streets and now it's on the internet. So what else has happened?
Well, I mean, ultimately, as you said, things have shifted from a technological standpoint. We're seeing streams and sales for digital artists coming in at a record low. I mean, even though they say Andre 3000 released the album, which was all instruments, and people are saying it actually has streamed more than a lot of artists who have released stuff, but with vocals rapping on it. So I think that's an illustration, not to discredit Andre's work, but to the state of, I guess, the hip hop
Probably to
listener.
sign my era's coming now. Instrumental albums. I got a lot of them, people.
I think the hip hop listeners change. The listeners are changing, and people always, I guess, want good music. I think people are tired of some of the repetitive stuff they've been fed over the past.
I think the domains of hip hop, what they've been able to do with it is they've kept the marketings of hip hop to those that are still beaten by society. Hence why it's not I'm relaxing, smoking my way after work. It's I got opiates, I got problems. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's the bottom. I mean, you could argue hip hop's always represented. Oh, guys, I think he's had a flat battery. Let me give him a minute. Yeah, guys, I'm about to wind down on this one soon. Let me see if I give him a call.
Yeah, I think my phone caps at 1 hour.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so you were saying, Fonzie?
Yeah, no, I think just with how hip hop sort of changed now, it's from a technological standpoint, that's really changed a lot of things just with the streaming and the older artists or the more old school artists. They say they're doing better with live shows and stuff now. People more want to come out and see those guys on the live stage. I think
Yeah,
music
appreciate them.
is changed. Yeah, people want new music. People want something different. At the same time, I think a lot of artists are scared to produce something different. So I think it's gonna be interesting just as we close up 50 years of hip hop to see how things go and continue forward into the new year. I know ultimately hip hop's still gonna be around. Still one of the biggest art forms.
We need to take control of it, though, like, or a better streaming of it. Like, I think there needs to be a
Well,
criteria.
I think it's. I think it's.
Like
I
back in
think.
the day when we used
Yeah.
to have
I think
PG
that's done.
13, 18, and X. I think that's what we need to do with things.
Yeah,
People
I
can
mean,
still have their fun.
they still have that. They still have that, but it's just it's harder to. I mean, you was buying a CD or a tape. It was different. You had to go to a store physically. It was easier for them to manage that because if you went to you went to the clerk and went to buy the thing, and they looked at it and said you don't look a certain age. They wasn't selling it to you. A lot of people had that happen even out here. I
Oh
had,
yeah, I grew up in that era.
so with things being digital online, to be able to get some things a lot easier. So it's a different process. They can access the things a lot easier, even though it still can be specified. Okay, this is content for kids, or this is a lot of the platforms that
NERD CD, and they wouldn't let me buy it. I'm like,
yeah
it's NERD, it's not gangster rap.
yeah these platforms now they ask you as well, but because the accessibility has changed, yes, people still should have accessed some of the stuff, but they will. But I was just gonna say, because of how the digital industry changed, I don't think there's always gonna be money being generated, but the type of money being generated, it's either being fed straight back out to satisfy the higher ups, and where the artists are probably seeing less and less now. To even why I think that's why a lot of them now we're hearing about them selling up their catalogs and their masters and stuff. Because I think some of them are probably looking at it saying, oh well, this part of the game's dead now, or ain't bringing in what it used to bring in. They're just trying to cash out. Which
Yeah,
I don't agree
mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, but all for the change. I mean, like, here's the thing: the industry might have changed, but like you said, the genuine artists, their music will still stay. Like, you know what I mean? Some people have made music that is good, and they, as an individual, have changed.
Yeah,
The
of course. I mean, because
music captured that person at that time.
music to an artist is a special, unique relationship. So it's like they could be going through their own alchemical process while they're creating music. So as you said, they change it, and that could be an interpersonal thing. There's some great musicians out there. Some people have never heard. And that's how the world does. I think some people describe music as the sound of the universe. So whether the industry is there or not, music will always exist. It's not something that they can get rid of. People are always gonna make music and be rhythmical and that sort of thing. But as we've seen, so music's always got to exist. True musicians are always going to exist. They're always going to be where they need to be, just at that particular moment in time. The industries are definitely a different bag. Yes, there are some good and true musicians in the industry. And there is a lot of BS at the same time. But I think, as you said, musicians will continue forward. The underground will continue forward. To this day, the underground still has some of the best or better music because it's more freely chosen and self-directed, is limited or as constructed as some of the stuff that comes throughout the industry. But the industry does have some good produced stuff, at different level as well also. But
because they have money to maintain and sustain, and also have, like, it's a lot to have all of those gigabytes of new things and equipment and all that. So like there's a level ahead, but still sound is sound. It's just you've got better machines.
Pretty much that's it. They can polish things up to a different level.
You know what I mean? But then here's the thing: some things that were recorded back in the 50s and 60s is old gold, and you still can't beat it.
Yep, different levels of creation, man, and that's the thing. If you create something original, it will remain original. If you create something that just is to fit to a particular time or sound that's happening or vibe that's happening.
I have a young brother named Only Kosher, and Kosher, another English translation to it, an alternative English translation to the word kosher is original or authentic.
Yeah, there you go. And that's it. You want to be original.
That's my young homie. He's what's his name? Well, he's a grown man now. You know what I mean? He opened up for Cardinal Official in Canada, and he was an artist in Saudi and in Dubai. Only Kosher. He's a journalist now though in Canada as well. He's a very, very active young guy. Shout out to my other homie MH, who's also in Canada. He's a Afro beats artist from the nation of Chad. He's doing well. He sings in 3 languages. He was also a JFAM member of mine. Just shouting out people.
Deep nice, man. Get them out, shout them out, man.
Yeah, they called me a couple of days ago, but I've just been so busy and I haven't been able to. So I'm gonna forward I'm gonna tell them, listen, I mentioned you guys on an interview, but I haven't been able to actually be on the phone with y'all.
Well, everything's about timing, but I'm sure they would appreciate the sentiment.
Yeah, I appreciate them too. My young homie, he was the first one to get my the same Clouds and Waterfalls on Dead End Hip Hop like around 10 years ago, and that's why I appreciate you too for putting up Clouds and Waterfalls. I think Clouds and Waterfalls might be my best project, my best instrumental project aside from Jid the Nights.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But now I have to go through a creative change. Now I have to grow up now, Fonzie. I have to not move with the times, but right now I have to create something new that is to date, even if it doesn't sound like what's out today. So it's been a change. I feel like this is a new transition point now. Like I've done. What was the word that you told me before? Like an era, a space. What was the word? An epoch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one epoch, and now there's another one. I've got a few, but I think I've just ended one or presented one. That was one epoch of creativity, and now we're on to the next.
Well, that's definitely you gotta keep keep evolving, keep creative.
Yeah. I mean, I think people would enjoy music more if they looked at it as how can I create something just on a sound design level? Can I make a sound with this? Can I make a sound with like? I think that will stop people from getting disheartened about not being in the industry, and I think that would make them assimilate themselves to have a form of structure that works for them, even if it doesn't go on greater national television. I mean, like in this location of England, BBC Three is online, so it doesn't really matter right now. We don't need to be on television. Granted, if YouTube won't take it down, Daily Motion won't take it down, or if you have enough of a following, things are different now. Things are looking up.
As I said, with technology, you can push yourself right to the forefront.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing right now. Right now, you know what I mean? Like the people that don't know you from my angle, and the people that don't know me from your angle. Once you know what I mean?
And we keep creative. We keep working hard. There ain't no
I'm definitely gonna send you a bunch of people from my city that are doing things because they deserve it as well. I have a chance, like so. Shout out to High Society Music Studio. Shout out to Kofi the Visualizer, Kofi the Don, who was doing it. And shout out Trent Bandit, and also Backstreets and Chuck's Barbers, Young 2Cs. Everybody in my city, bro. Plugs Pride is Hamilton Bay, John's Bar. All of these people that are great people in the city, keeping the city up together, especially for those that live in the city and for those that are also of melanated backgrounds as well. Yeah, man, like Stoke-on-Trent hopefully will be the city soon. It's not it yet, but it will be there soon. People always talk bad about the city now. You got to have the self-positivity first before it goes out to the rest of the world. So, like, we're coming up soon, Fonzie. Hopefully the next time you come through will be a better city.
Well, no doubt, man. Just everything has to evolve. If not, it stays stagnant and the same. So, keep doing your bit, keep adding to the culture. Developing, and as they say, you got to take pride in where you from or wherever you have from, wherever it's at. No doubt, that's how we represent.
Hip hop taught me that.
Yep.
Hip hop taught me that. So yeah, like if anybody want to take this quote, so on and so forth, be like, hit me. Hip hop taught me that. Like if that's what you have, be proud of it.
Well,
because it's all you got.
Well, on that note, in the new year, before I wind out, I want to say we're gonna be having a re-emergence of our artist spotlight series, which will be about that music group division, about that online, and that will focus directly on your independent artists, giving them an independent spotlight feature where we go in depth about their music. So we definitely once we get that back in the swing, hopefully you come and do an artist spotlight out. No, these are visual based interviews. Whether we do them via the Zoom or StreamYard or something, perhaps we can do them remote. So that could be something for yourself, and obviously you have artists and stuff that you've mentioned. These are more music directed, focused questions, where they're formatted questions, which we will ask the artists. spotlight interview.
Yeah, like I've been telling people in my city, like too many people want to be the guy in Stoke, like they want to be that dude in Stoke or whatever city it is. I said it's not about that. It's about being that dude from there. So that other people, like you can be whoever, you can be anybody in the city, but who are you outside it? And that's where, if you're somebody, if all of us are somebody's outside the city, when we come back, we'll make something of the city. You know what I mean? But too many people beefing over, they want to be that nigga or they want to be that female, they want to be that dude, and they don't unify. You know what I mean? Obviously, people rub each other the wrong way certain times, but now we got to learn how to be, we got to learn how to be cordial and civil and not do that in order to get somewhere. You know what I mean? I don't like it when people are like, stalker shit. I'm like, I was privileged enough to live elsewhere, but I'm not gonna call this place shit. Like, you know what I mean? I'll be like, I'm gonna try to fix it or I'm gonna enjoy what the fuck it is. You know what I mean?
You gotta do your bit, you know. That's it. Wherever you at, like I said, you take pride in where you at, and if you can't do anything to help uplift or build it up, you definitely don't do the destructive aspects and tear it down. You know, ain't nobody
Thank
perfect.
you, Fonzi.
Yeah, we can build or we can destroy, man. So we got that ability, but let's build if we can, and try to stay on that notion. And you said it correctly, man.
Yeah, man, and shout out to Brum too, bro. I hear Brum's going. I hear Brum's getting like very very bad and so on and so forth. But the Brummies are strong, bro. I live there. I'm technically a Brummie too. I've been there. I was born in Stoke, but I went to school in Brum, college in Brum. Brummies are strong, bro. They
Yeah,
they they gonna get it together. Don't worry.
Brum is brum. I ain't tripping, bro. Brum is brum to me, man. Like you said it. You said it the best. Cause I'm, they know me in Brum shit. Even when they see me, they don't see me. When they see me, it's whoop de woo. But at the same time,
I
they
tell
they
people
know
don't step into
I'm a
Birmingham
they know
playing.
I'm a
It's
representative.
serious.
Yeah, they know I'm a representative of the city. No matter where I go, no matter where I've been,
I
no matter
love
where I'm
Birmingham.
at.
I
But
always loved Birmingham when I was there. You know what I mean? I'm not like them other people like, I don't like Birmingham. The only thing I'll say is just be careful of a very, very pretty woman from Birmingham.
bro. Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, be careful with a very pretty woman from Birmingham. Be careful.
You just gotta be, know how you stepping,
Diligent.
man. Yeah, you gotta know how you stepping. Trust me. Yeah.
Yeah, but the Brummies, if a Brummie got your back, he got your back, though. I'll tell you that, though. That's one thing I love about the Brummies, though. If a Brummie got your back, he got your back.
Bro, tough kind of place to grow up in some aspects, in some regions. So yeah, people do definitely cling to camaraderie and stuff, and not in all cases, but loyalty definitely a big thing and stuff as well. So yeah,
Me,
people.
I like Brum, bro. Like Brum was cool. Like I just know not to do just you. Like I said, certain things in Brum. Yeah, like there's some very malevolent things that happen in Brum too. Some very nefarious and bad things, but overall, it's not a bad place like how people paint it.
Yeah, nah, I mean, everywhere to me kind of the same. I've been a lot of places, but yeah, they all got their nice parts and they all got their shitholes.
You know what I mean? Stoke and Brum.
Yeah, ghettos are the same everywhere,
Like for
bro.
me,
They
I look at it
stink.
like this. I ain't picking a side. I'm from Stoke. It's like both. It's like we got Liverpool too. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Stoke is
yeah.
like
I like
the
pool, bro.
central point. So like that's why I'm like, people take pride in you. Take pride in us.
Yeah,
Take pride in us right now, people.
you got I mean, I rep B Town, but I definitely transcend the place where I feel, I can't be bound to just
Don't be.
yeah.
Don't be.
I would
I'm
encourage
doing
that to
this to
anybody.
help the homegrown people that are
Like I
never
said, no
gonna leave
no
us on.
matter no matter where you at, whether it's long term, whether it's short term, wherever it is you go, you do what you can to add value to the place, and that's it. Period.
Yeah, you said it. You
It's
said it.
that's just what we should live by, how we should be. Same. I got reputation in a lot of cities which I won't mention for security and personal reasons, but
More cities
and you
around
know,
the world soon, huh? Huh?
they and you know
We,
they.
we told you we got Maff with you now. Maybe Saudi soon, bro. You ever been to Jeddah, bro?
Nowhere at that, I was talking to this Asian dude that he was trying to tell me to come to Pakistan. I was like, I was trying to say to him
Go,
respectfully, there ain't really
go.
nothing out there for me, bro. But he, I said to him, don't get me
Wait,
wrong. I said I like to travel the world because he was saying, I think his reasoning was, something. Oh, if you come out there and people would treat you good, or there was a black. He says there was a black guy who did something on YouTube and went out there and
yeah,
people
he did. I seen it.
and people around the world were shocked. But I'm like, yeah, I said, I
Yeah, yeah,
suppose.
yeah.
I said, if
Because remember, they
I
are
said,
from there. They're not the British. When we live in our cities, like
yeah, no,
these English speaking
you're
cities, we're
gonna get.
different from those people back home.
Yeah, no, of course, I can imagine because I could, I didn't. I said to him, same. I didn't travel some places where I've been the only black person there, and it ain't been an issue. The people that treat me good or whatever, but and I think, as you said, if we judge it by our experience after Asian people here, they're not necessarily gonna be the same. They're gonna be different people because it's in their land and they're gonna be ever,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
may,
yeah.
they
You
may
take the
not, they're not,
opportunity.
they're
If
not gonna
nobody
have.
offered me the opportunity, I go wherever, man. I want to go to. I've never been anywhere in the Asian continent. I've been
Yeah.
to the African and the American continent. Never been anywhere in the Asian continent.
I'd probably go to the Asian continent, like to probably the more Oriental places. But yeah, I mean, you
Take me
know,
where all the good food is. I don't care where it is in the
yeah,
world.
not
Take me to where all the good food is.
not to, I won't say never, but my friend Tiny Iron, he went out there. He said he was decent. I won't say never, but it would probably, if there was some business or something, but I wouldn't go on like he's saying,
Listen, if I've got
just to
the
go on a
expendable
vacation.
to go on leisure, oh, I'm not staying in Stoke. I'm
Yeah.
coming back. I'm coming back, but I'm not staying. You see me every 6 months. I'll be back, but I'm going somewhere else.
Yeah, nah, definitely,
And I'm
man.
bringing something back too. It's not like I just was. I'll bring something back too.
Yeah, these places, the world's an oyster, man. That's why I feel as though, as a, I would, not in a bad way. I wouldn't go there. I'd probably go somewhere different where I know I'd much more. Not say I wouldn't enjoy it, but I know if I go somewhere different, I know what I'm signing up for. You know what I mean?
I learned from the Saudis. This is one thing I definitely learned from. Well, not the Saudis, the Hijazis. I learned this from the Hijazis. Hey, if there's something you like from another person's culture, yeah, it's a food, it's all this, so forth. If it works for you, take it and add it to whatever it is you're doing as well.
Mm.
Yeah, take it and do it. Add to it, because then you got your own, but now you know others, and with you knowing your own and others, you can come up with something new that works for whoever it works for. I learned that from the Hijazis. I learned that in Jeddah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I could probably see that. I know like the Asians do that as well. It was like out here they will definitely take elements of stuff that they can utilize. And add on. The Chinese, I believe, do similar as well. I think they say the Chinese do that. They will learn how something work and put it together in their own kind of way and stuff as well. So I think
Ever since I've learned that they are closer to us genetically, I've paid a bit more attention into how they've developed and all that, because it's very intriguing, because the history that they have formed for themselves in their own times and all of that is very interesting, and
yeah, the
I
Chinese. Oh,
would like to see where the mythologies and all of those meet, or where they had changed along that journey, because I find that very interesting. I thought, honestly, I thought we were totally separate, but as the stuff has come out that they are closer to us, I was like, oh, I'd love to see
yeah,
how
I
that
mean,
transition has happened.
they closer to us than any of these other groups.
Yeah, that's amazing, and like I can attest to it, especially like when there's when Africans and Orientals mix, the child looks a lot more Oriental, a lot less brown, and so on and so forth, because the gene cancels out, and it's like, oh, it's. But I'm looking more so at the cultural aspect. So then it's like, so where did the adaptation of like the sword being the only thing, whereas they do have some. So where did weaponry change what made the weaponry change? Where did the conceptualization of dragons come from? And all of that, because you don't primarily hear of dragons in Africa.
Yeah, no, they got their own kind of mythology in that aspect as well.
Yeah, so like I'd love to know where that came from, where the changes came from, and all that. Because then I think that would give us a very good understanding of
Yeah,
how cultures mixed, changed, and evolved, and what were the common threats that made them pair up.
yeah, I think some of them had common threads or whatever, but I think they had definitely had their differences and stuff as well. And as you said, it'd be
Yeah,
interesting
yeah,
to
yeah.
but they are definitely an old recorded race of people and stuff, and I think that's what it is. I think I would vibe with them a lot better than I would with like, especially at this period of time, going somewhere in Pakistan, and they got the all this stuff going on with the Afghan migrants, and there's
Afghans are people, bro. I tell you, have you ever
nah,
Afghan? I tell you, they're the black people of that region. Trust me.
yeah, nah, I mean, I can't say for out there, but not the ones. I mean, the ones I've met are just I
Were they
could. Well,
not?
I
Were
don't
they
really.
not friendly?
I
Were
don't
they
really.
not
Know,
friendly?
I don't know if I know too many. Actually outright Afghans or whatever. But
I know a
to
few,
be
bro.
honest, if you the
They
ones
some
I've
real ones, bro. If they're like, I have friends in Saudi, I have friends here. You know what I mean? They some real ones, bro. Like I'll tell you that.
yeah,
Like I haven't every Afghani homie that I had was a real one to me. Everyone has their own faults, but like I've not seen in my experience, yeah, in my presence, a bad example of character from one. Like even
yeah.
when I had situations at home, so on and so forth, in Jeddah, I went over, stayed at my Afghani friend's house. His family welcomed me in and everything. So like, and that I had numerous accounts with different Afghani folk. They just seem to be really cool people.
Yeah,
With my experience.
yeah, nothing even against them, but I know there's that, I think Pakistan want to kick them out now, and or they
They
don't,
have, they have a
the
border.
U.S.
They
want
have a
to,
border issue,
yeah,
I think.
so, I mean, I don't know, I don't think I think it's only ISIS they associate with them as to do from a negative standpoint, but yeah, I'm not, slighting the whole group of people or anything.
Taliban,
You
not
know,
ISIS.
I,
Taliban.
oh, Taliban, yeah, sorry, yeah, so,
ISIS is serious.
yeah, bro, it's too much now. Now you got the Houthis, you got Hezbollah, you got Hamas, you got
Yeah, me personally, you
and
see, the thing is, it
why
goes
did
to the
these
heavy
three
heart when you mention the Houthis for me because
why did they
I
all be
politically,
why did
I
they
don't get involved,
I was
but
just gonna
they attacked the petrol mine in America they call it Camco, in Saudi it's Aramco, and my house is only like a couple blocks from that place. Like one of my other homies, the J fam homies, his family's house is a couple blocks from that. So like, imagine hitting an oil refinery. That shit would have blown. Like, so it
yeah,
hits a bit personal to me
yeah, I'm
when,
just like
especially I'm not involved in it. I was just a resident in Saudi, but
they
I like my neighbors.
they all begin with H. I don't know if there's any reason for that, but I was like these Houthis. So do you think they should put them back on the terrorist list?
Like, yeah, it's not my place to say because I don't know what happened to them or what their situation. For how I grew up, you know how I grew up in Saudi. That from what I know, the origin of the Arabs
They
is
from
the Yemenis,
The
and the
Houthis.
Saudis and the
Yeah,
Yemenis
yeah.
were like. What's his name? Like fingers crossed together. Like I don't. This whole thing this is the one time I'm gonna say I'm an African. I don't know what's going on. I thought they was cool.
Yeah, cause they from Yemen, right?
I mean, the roots, I was taught by Arabs. The roots of the Arabs is the Yemenis. And then there's the difference between Yemenis and the people that are from Hadramaut. And like, there's a history there. But so, how there's a military endeavor and all that, I'm going to say, bro, I was a resident in Saudi. And for me, I'm looking at it like this. The bangers can bang away from the city, but my neighbor ain't my neighbor. A lot of my neighbor, half of my neighbors weren't Saudi. Like they're not national Saudis. They were just residents. So for me, it hits home because it's a war that my neighbors and me would get affected in, but we don't know what happened. So I can't say like like with me not being ignorant about the situation, because obviously they're doing whatever's happened between the two nations that has caused them to fight like so. I don't know, because I grew up as a kid seeing Yemeni and Saudi flag together, bro. Like, so I would say this is Arab politics.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot happening, man. Even I'm
Yeah, that's Arab
there's
politics. For me, even as a Arabic speaking Muslim, I don't really know what my position is, because for me, I'm looking at it like, all right, they attacked Jeddah, they didn't attack Mecca. Like, that's what somebody could say. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, somebody
I
could say
know that.
fuck your. Somebody could say fuck your tourist city. You know what I mean? If you really, you must go to Mecca. I'm like, somebody could say that.
Yeah, I know there's been a bit of disparity on whether they're acknowledging them as an official terror cell or whatever, but it's
I don't.
it,
I mean,
I mean,
I
that's
don't know,
obviously, yeah,
bro.
that's coming from the government.
I know that we drove past those regions where Camco and all of that was. Like, that's on the main highway, so it really hits home. And for me, I'm just looking at it like this: if I was injured, there, so on and so forth, and something happened, I'm like, we're affected just because we want to be close to Mecca and all that. I'm like, I don't know what happened, but bro, it's all I
Yeah,
know is
I
that I
mean,
was in England when it happened, and it just hit home. It hits personally for me.
yeah, man, we want hopefully we see some peace in that region, but it's not looking.
All regions, man, everywhere. There's
Oh
parts of
yeah, around the
Africa
whole, of
that's
course,
going
around the
through
whole
stuff right
world,
now
but
that nobody's talking about. So everywhere, man. Like,
yeah,
I was just expressing that it hits close to me when you mentioned the Houthis, because it was like, man, they hit Jeddah, bro. It's not like they just hit Saudi. They hit Jeddah. Being selfish, I'm from Jeddah, not Saudi.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
no, yeah,
I'm from my city. I'm from Jeddah. I'm from Mushaf. You know what I mean? And then I moved to Sahaf and Bremen. And then they hit Bremen, that area. So that's what I'm like, bro. This is really close to home. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Of course, I'd appreciate that. You could have, close to losing people and stuff. There, I mean, that's the thing. It's like we live in definitely tumultuous times, and I'm hoping today, with whatever protests and stuff that they do, they it's able to just happen just like I
I
don't know,
think us, what
nice
we
and
can do
quiet
as
and peaceful.
Westerners is just changing legislation, bro. We need to get in offices. We need to get into lawmaking. We need to get into human rights. That's how we can fight it. These protests are cool, but how it happens is in the
Yeah,
office.
I mean, I'm not with the pro. That's how I'm not even with these protests, man. Like that, I think that's it. It's like, cause I mean, to be honest,
Counterproductive.
there's people in politics in political positions. Let them do the sit downs and stuff. But yeah, if these protests are just gonna be stirring up,
Civilian hatred between
and you're
civilians,
not,
it's not gonna do anything.
if people protest to be heard, once you've been heard, that's fine because everybody's been heard. You've been heard now, so it's like, but once you keep adding on, it's like poking the bear. There gotta be a stop point. So it's like,
Here's the thing.
because even with if people want to say, and I know I want to say it's different, where people want to say, okay, you had the BLM protests and. But they stopped after a couple of days or whatever because same thing. Once they had been heard and they started to have the talks and his family are talking to the people they need to talk to, everybody, not say go back to normal, but but I get that with this war being complicated and because the things are still happening, it seems like the pro-Palestinian protests are gonna protest as much as they can. I guess until there's a finale, which sounds kind of strange because there ain't. I don't think there's gonna be a finale at the minute.
I
Israel are
don't
reporting that they've kind of, put a ceasefire on things, but they've made it clear that they will be.
The ceasefire has ended now.
Yeah, they made it clear they want to start again. So I think that's why they're doing this vigil today. But they said all throughout the ceasefire they was dealing with attacks from other proxies. So that's their justification to say they need to continue. Even though they said I think before they still wanna. This is Israel. They made it clear whether we like it or not. They made it clear. They said this is only a temporary ceasefire, not a permanent one or something. So
The problem is that here's the thing: let the bangers bang. If they want to attack Hamas, go ahead and attack Hamas. It's not Hamas. We're telling you not to attack. We're telling you not to attack innocent Palestinians. I didn't. We let the bangers bang. Go ahead, do what you want to. But can you stop shooting
yeah,
at children
I
and
think
women?
that's I think now they need to use this period and get as much of them out there as possible. And I think the same thing. Not that it's right, but I think Israel do want to just completely blitz the area, and I think that's why they're holding back because they're sort of like they know that there's mounting pressure from the
I doubt
international.
that they can. They haven't been able to do it in the last how many 60 years. I doubt they'll do it. I think it's
No,
another fear
yeah, I don't
mongering
think they
thing
want
that
it
they're
because
doing. They're trying to cause uproar and see who's radical in the West or so on and
I
so
think
forth.
because they
This is
know
my
that.
opinion. This is why I think legislation and people getting into laws, having human rights conferences with the UN and all of that. I think if it was a collective effort from other countries to register not just the Palestinians, other backgrounds as well as endangered backgrounds and so on and so forth from the UN, because that's what some Native Americans have. I think that would make a better move, but no one has made that move. As Israel has a way of not wanting to continue a conversation mid-conversation. So now I think that's what has to happen. It has to come from a greater force than just people's opinion. It has to be like it has to come through laws. It has to come through legislation and all that. Now, how it gets to that, I do not know, but there has to be an attempt because you can
I,
protest. You can protest so much, but if you're bound by a tax bracket or so on and so forth, and not actual legislation movement and so on and so forth, you're just gonna be heard and nothing's gonna change.
yeah, this you gotta follow the laws and stuff. I don't know if you're familiar with the CCHR, the Citizens Commission of Human Rights.
I am not. Please inform me about it. Tell me.
Yeah, no, I mean you were just speaking of human rights, and they do a
Yeah,
lot.
I might need to look into what the details of that are and see where Palestine comes into it, because I mean there's a lot of work that us as individuals in the UK need to do in terms of getting our laws and things right put in a book. Like how you have the U.S. Constitution. For us, we don't have a clear thing, especially one that will be towards like black folk or brown folk in the UK. There needs to be a special book for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty tall order. I don't think that would happen. I don't want to say
Well,
never
you gotta
say.
put the idea out
Yeah, I
there.
don't want to say never, but just from how the UK sort of operates, I can't see. Perhaps I could see them bending over backwards a bit for you know, as you said, brown folk, for lack of a better term in that aspect. But yeah, I don't know
Well, then we bend over backwards for ourselves
if
and
they
come
can't
on
e-
top.
if they can't even get an anti-black hate bill in the US. I don't know if our chances out here in the UK are much better.
Well, you know what I mean.
No,
That,
I'm with you though, but it
right.
is there's definitely a lot of human rights stuff going on. I think CCHR, they do a lot of great work on just exposing human rights violations and stuff, and some of the other damaging practices that happen out there in the world, and in different fields and groups.
Well,
Um,
human rights to different people means different things. I mean, like I was reading somewhere the other day. Mexico declared what's his name, cannabis a human right. I was like, that's a different different human rights they have. That's not a human right over on this side of the planet.
yeah, but there you go, exactly.
That's not a human right on this side of the planet. You know what I mean, like.
Yep. Well,
Hopefully things change. Because look, we're just presented. They're doubling down on the Palestinians. We don't know who else is being doubled down on right now. All these other wars and all of that. Like, bruh, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, because we're Muslims and we're supposed to fast Ramadan and all that, and Ramadan's meant to be a reflective thing. So like when Prophet Muhammad told us to reflect. I think about like, yo, these are people that are dying in Palestine. What about other people that are just victims? Not necessarily. I say Palestinians because okay, I'm Muslim. I can see closer relation there. But in using the mind and spirit of Ramadan, what about the other people that are just human beings that are not Muslim that are getting doubled down on by whatever? You know what I mean? That's still happening. You know what I mean? So for me, when I see the Palestinians, I also see like what am I not seeing?
Of course, that's why I empathize with the Israelis and the Palestinians affected. All the ones that are victims of just war and violence.
I don't empathize with any of the oppressing forces. I empathize with the underdog, though. I don't empathize with the oppressor though, because I don't. Because here's the thing, I don't.
Yeah, but the
One
victim.
thing
I
that
mean, no,
where
no.
I think it was a Hadith Qudsi. God said in the Hadith Qudsi, Allah says that He's forbidden oppression for Himself, so human beings do not oppress. That's what He tells human beings. So
Yeah,
human
but
beings
I
do
mean
not.
that's we're talking governments here. For those women that were raped and the people that were killed and stuff. I mean, they didn't deserve that at all. At the end of the day,
No, nor did any of the people that nor did any of our ancestors go being taken from Africa to Jamaica. Like
yeah, we
even
of
let's
course.
leave the Palestinians for a second. Let's be black for a sec. Yeah,
No, we
we
know
didn't
that,
all them
but
slave ships and all that. They didn't need to go through all of
of
that. But that's
course
human
we
beings.
know, but we can't. I can't say I've met people that have lost their children to violence and stuff, and
Yeah,
some of them.
yeah, no,
No,
it's
hear
terrible.
me out. Some of them have been. I'm not saying everybody should be forgiven, but have a level of understanding of the atrocities that happen. What I'm saying is, despite like of what's happened with us, and I'm not discounting it the horrors, but one we can't compare one thing to another. So all I'm saying is, the people that were raped and killed in Israel, those were the people. Those weren't the government. If you want to say the government's oppressive and the government's the enemy, yeah, but there's innocent people on both sides. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah, the same way. Like that's why I said. That's why I compared it with us. The
yeah?
same
But you
way
said
that
you
it
said
was
you couldn't
villagers and all
improv.
of that got taken and all that. It was someone in the office who told them that yeah, the soldiers can go do that. Take them villages. Because here's the thing: they didn't have a commonwealth. They didn't have. You didn't. If someone wasn't under the
No,
commonwealth,
I'm with
they
you.
didn't have to take care of them
Here's
as a
here's my,
slave. They are white
I'm
slaves,
with
but when
you.
they went to Africa and
The,
did all of that, it was because they didn't have to take care of them.
Here's
So
the
it's the
thing.
same thing they're doing.
Those are politics, but I don't really want to get too much on the politics. But I'm just talking from a humanistic level. Even though
Right.
just right or wrong, so I can empathize to the victims on both sides. I know people can argue on who they feel is oppressive or who's you know version of events or whose theology is right and all that.
It's
I
the
really
same
try and
example.
avoid that, but I do feel it for the victims on both sides. I can't say okay,
It's the same like
like
somebody
if
saying like I'm not sympathetic.
look what white folk have done. If somebody committed a terror attack on white people, I wouldn't celebrate it because just because they white.
Because it's a terror attack. You don't celebrate human beings being hurt.
Yeah, I couldn't. I
In
wouldn't be
this
like,
context,
I know, and I hear what you're saying, and it's wrong. Can I tell them? I know some brothers that would, and it's wrong because some of them would be like, yeah, Esau and them, they got what they deserve, this and that. I know people like that. I'll be like, even if you think that, there ain't really, it doesn't, it doesn't help anything.
there's nothing wrong with someone getting what they deserve. Because here's the thing: there's a polarity of
Yeah,
that.
but not,
No
but
good
that's
deed
the,
goes unpunished too. So if you
yeah,
do something good, you deserve something good back.
yeah, but the government getting what they deserve. If you think that they're a problem is something different than
A
innocent
government
women.
is a body of people at a certain
If
situation
you
and
rape
time.
if
The
you
government can change.
if you rape a woman and kill people and all that stuff, you can't say they got what they deserve because they did what did they do?
No, exactly. That's why I said the comparison of Africans getting taken over there, so on and so forth. They didn't deserve that. Same way the Palestinians didn't. Same way the Jews before the whole World War didn't need that. Same way the Palestinians didn't need this legislation that happened at 1947.
Yeah, I don't know
That's
about
why I
the
said I don't empathize with any oppressor,
yeah, I
and
don't know
all
the
of them have been
legis
oppressive from the beginning.
yeah, I don't know
All
about
of them. The only reason they could do that to the Palestinians Palestinians because they did it to us. It's just that they don't want to talk about us. They want to talk about the Palestinians.
The Jews didn't do that to us.
Huh?
The Jews they didn't do that to us, Israel.
What? No. What's his name? Israel didn't exist. I'm talking about the people that allowed that situation to happen. The 1884 Berlin Conference. The only reason why you have these African country names is because of that. So
Yeah,
all of
I
those
mean
people are the ones who divided stuff up,
yeah, but
made
I don't want to
slaves
get
and
into
all of
that.
that.
Some
And
people
then
say
through
there's
slavery and all that, that's how you got all the mulattoes through the rapings.
yeah, we
I
know.
mean, that's us. They did worse to the what's his name,
Yeah,
to the ones
and it was
on
just as
in South America.
of course these
Like,
things have happened, but it's just as bad, you know. You know,
so that's why I said I don't empathize with the oppressor because those were oppressors who did that.
no, that's you making two different statements because the victims aren't the oppressors. That's why the victims are victims.
No, that's the oppressors are the ones who captured and manipulated and moved people out of their places. Palestinians didn't do that to anyone.
You can't label a whole group based on the actions of some individuals.
And that's exactly why people are like, oh, well, you know, when you asked me if the Houthis are a terrorist group, right now they're asking if the Hamas are. And then if
No,
using the same just by the actions of a few, so on and so
Hamas
forth.
are no Hamas are a terrorist group. I don't know the Houthis. There's a question, but which some may find legitimate. But Hamas
I,
have been officially prescribed as a terrorist group, and I'm saying this based on
I wasn't going by any official statement. I was just going by the fact of somebody saying the acts of a few. Because then I'm saying like, well, yeah, that's true. The acts of a few don't speak for the whole, and so on and so forth. But then at the same time, that's the same excuse white
yeah,
people
but
talk about.
this is different. That those are groups. When you talking,
Well, it was a group that took a whole bunch of Africans.
is
They even got compensated
yeah, but
for the fact of their ships. The ship owners got compensated for it. That's actually documented.
yeah, but that's those people in that group. It's just like with Israel. If you're saying Israel are doing stuff, that's the people at the top in those groups. That's not the citizens. You know, those are
No. It's this.
this
So that's why I always say militarily,
they're
like
still
it's
victims.
military and not citizens. So that's why I said the Palestinians don't have an army and so on and so forth. I said let the bangers bang, but stop hitting the Palestinian kids.
Yeah, but the people that they got on October the 7th, they were not. They were, you know, just regular
Those
people.
weren't civilians. Those weren't civilians. Palestinians that
I,
did that. That's why. That's why the ceasefire.
yeah,
I said stop
it's not
using.
Palestinian they're against. It's Hamas.
Yeah, that's why I was saying the ceasefire they cease firing at Palestinians. Go ahead, bang at the bangers that are banging at you. Palestinians ain't doing it though.
But
That's
that's
why I
what
said leave them alone.
that's the sad part because you know that's what they're encouraging with the ceasefire for them to leave the combat zones, and as you said, let the bangers bang. You know, I
You see,
think
that's why they went to them. Where the Palestinians are still home. Where are they gonna go? They're home. If
what
you look at the expansion of the map, what's his name? Palestine's been Palestine. They're trying to. Where are they gonna send them? Because right now,
I
this
thought
is why
one
I
of
say England. This is why I say for us, we need to get involved and say, okay, I'm sorry we gave y'all that contract, but y'all need to stop killing them.
they need to let. I thought Lebanon or some of those places we got to take them. You know, I mean they must can take them temporarily or something. You know.
Well, see, here's the thing. Israel's not been really good to any of its neighbors. We just focus on
No, not
the
Israel. The
Palestinians.
Palestinians. Yeah, Israel. They're at war. It sounds like they're at war with all of them. You know, or they've had wars with all of
If
those.
you go, it's like you go into the club. If it's like you go into a club, there's four men standing there, and you start throwing your drink on them. Why are you doing that? And then here's the problem. It's like somebody outside told you, yeah, you can go in with that drink. Yeah, go ahead and go do that to people. You can be there, just don't start ruining stuff for people or so on and so forth. That's why other people don't recognize you. Would you like to go to the club with someone like that? No. No,
Yeah,
I wouldn't like to go to the club with someone like that.
yeah,
To be fair, I'd much rather not be anywhere near you.
yeah, but that's one narrative. You know, I don't take any. I've never been out there, so I can't say the.
No, it's
You
not.
know, because
That's why I said look
people
at the
paint
history
the
of stuff.
people
That's
paint
why
the
they
as
keep bringing us into it. We did that situation.
yeah, people paint the Israelis as like they're some bad people and stuff, and you know it's you know you can't say that for
I
all of
don't
them.
know. If you start taking someone's land when you're not invited, You tell me.
Yeah, but the land don't belong to any of them.
Well, in that case, so on and so forth. You don't have the right to kill
Have
anyone.
you ever seen a movie called Apocalypto?
Yeah, yeah, I have. But here's the thing: that's at the time when there's no legislation and governments. There are
Yeah,
one, but here's
these
one thing.
guys, you can here's the problem with these guys like Hamas. They want to have it both sides. They can't. They don't want legislation and government, but they do when it suits them. So you can't play it both ends, and
I'm not talking about Hamas. I'm talking about Palestinians.
yeah. But
That's why I said it was the
Hamas,
Palestinians, because I said
then
my thing was you got to leave the Palestinians in their home, and right now it's
yeah,
you're fighting with Hamas.
this is why I mentioned apocalyptic because we know war is brutal. Like people get, I'm not saying it's just like you mentioned in
Yeah, but
black
here's the thing.
people or whoever. Many people get
Go ahead.
displaced out of their quote unquote lands, during war, and sometimes that's it. You gotta relocate and
Yeah,
move.
but
I'm
there's a
not.
difference when somebody's saying that they have the authority to do something based on someone else that has nothing to do with it. That's why I'm saying the biggest act of, the biggest legal act that was against human rights was us telling them that they could go do that. We let them do all of that stuff. So now that we're talking about Hamas, go talk about Hamas. But right now the issue is the Palestinians and and them trying to take their land. So right now,
Yeah,
what
but
we should be saying
no.
is, okay, go back to whatever it was, and there should
But
be
you see the land.
go
You
fight
see
with
the
whoever's
land.
shooting at you.
The land that's
Palestinians
called
are not shooting at you.
the land that's called Palestine now.
Yeah.
The Israelis don't want.
But it's not up to them, though. That's why I said for us,
No, they don't. No, but what I'm saying
we
is,
told them they could do that. That's basically me saying
yeah, but
you
they
can
don't.
go rob that person's house. Who gave you the right?
Yeah,
I
but
don't have the right to do
they
that.
don't. They don't want that land. From my understanding, that is Palestinians are currently inhabiting. They don't want that land. They've already got their land in Israel. They just want Hamas
Here's
or
the
whoever,
thing.
whichever terror
Here's the thing.
elements.
When you say, I think you need to look more at the expansion of it, because when you say they don't want the land, look at the expansion from 47 to now and who gave them that. That's why there is no
Yeah, I
argument
mean, but that's
about them
just
being the oppressors.
that's
Because
just
right now, if you invite
yeah,
someone
but
into your house,
you could use that same argument for the Asians, Muslims, Pakistanis, all of them here in the UK. They could say they don't want the land, but they've multiplied more than whoever they've encroached
there's a
upon.
difference though. They're given citizenship.
Well, it's
they're a part of the system, whereas
where
the Israelis have not. They're still asking
well
to be
they've got to
identified
sign up
with
for,
with
but they
50 other two countries, whereas all of the countries of the world acknowledge the Palestinians. Right now, what we're saying is
but
stop attacking the Palestinians.
Israel
I didn't say
is
stop attacking Hamas.
yeah,
I
but
said stop attacking the
they are.
Palestinians.
But my thing is they are recognized. It's only Palestine, and I think a few of the neighboring regions that probably refuse to recognize it. But
No,
ultimately,
no, there's a whole. That's why I said I
uh,
think you need to look more into the whole thing, because
I've did.
there's about 50. There's about more than 30. There
You'd
is
have to
a
you'd have to
top
send
heavy
me
majority of countries not acknowledging Israel,
you'd have to
as
send me that
opposed to them
literature.
acknowledging it. And also, Israel is a new state that was been 47. Palestine is pre that.
You'd have to
That's
send me
why the argument doesn't work. But
you
it's okay. We can go back and forth about it.
yeah,
But
no,
that's why I
you'd
say
have to
if you
send
look
me
into the
the
map,
yeah, you'd
you'll
have to
know that there is no argument about it.
I've looked into it. You'd have to send me that particular literature, but I've looked into it, and from what I see, Israel are doing the best that they can. Is how
So
it,
what? The
they
best they can to whom? About what?
for themselves. They to survive.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
selfishly, yeah. I mean, a robber does the best for himself. That's not the argument.
I
That's
mean,
not. We're talking about oppression, and a robber is an oppressor. Sure, go ahead. Yeah, they are doing the best for themselves. I'm just saying, I would much rather not rob someone to do the best for myself. I'd rather thug it out.
yeah, but they. If you're saying they're fugging it out, isn't that what they're doing now by being
No, the
the?
Palestinians are thugging it out because they've still not been eradicated, though they have no military power or what's his name started the fight.
I think it could be. I
That's what
think.
I'm saying.
Yeah, I think Israel. I don't attempt fate because obviously we're playing with the fate of lives, but I think Israel will hold it back. Now I think if they really wanted to and they wasn't being concerned with a what the global community is saying and b whether
Well, they have to because
some may call it
only one person in the global community gave them that authority, England. That's why I say we should talk to them and say stop it. They
Yeah.
have to. Yeah, that's exactly what they'll do because we gave them that authority. Because if it was up to them, they would have been done it. But here's the thing: they can't do it either way because with all of their technology and so on and so forth, you've had a longer war than the Saudis have with Yemenis, and the Yemenis had a military defense. The Palestinians don't. Yeah, it doesn't seem. It seems like the oppressor is not winning the oppression, while the oppressed are still being oppressed.
Yeah, I mean, I'll empathize with any oppressed people, but I empathize with the victims on both sides because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't
obviously,
say,
because the innocent, the people. Here's the thing. That's why I said let the bangers bang. The people that are in suits to fight, let them go fight. Right now, the people that are not in suits to fight on both sides, leave them alone. But Israel's refused to do that.
yeah, no,
That's why I'm saying that
I've seen,
the innocent
I've
Palestinian
seen,
is not doing anything to the innocent Israeli. So right now, that's why I said let the
well,
bangers bang.
obviously, I've seen evidence to support otherwise. So I'm saying, send me any of that literature if you do have it, because I've seen a lot of literature to support otherwise. And I know this war is complicated. I know it's being fought.
Israel's always spun a narrative, but it's fine. Like it's no issue. Do you know why? Because every time they do something, the world gusts up, and they just make it worse for themselves. A bully doesn't win. A
Well,
bully doesn't win. That's the problem. That's the problem with the world, and they're realizing it now. And it's not even via military effort. It's
yeah,
not even
I
via
mean,
military. That's the best thing about it
if
right
they
now. It's
do,
not even via military effort.
like I
They're
said,
trying to make it that,
I
but
don't
right now
have.
it's the Western world that's really reacting more than Hamas is.
Yeah, I mean, look at we're almost close to it. I think 7 o'clock, as I said today, they're going to be protesting all around the UK, and we'll see. Obviously, how it ends out. I mean,
Protests and there's other
the
things
thing is,
happening
if
like
Israel
giving
are,
recognition. Like Starbucks's sales have dropped as well, so on and
yeah,
so forth.
well,
Because
it's like you saying about the music thing. That's why I mentioned Starbucks earlier, because I said,
yeah,
some people might.
listen, we
You've
both
got
had a frappuccino.
you've got some
I had a
people that will
frappuccino. I
buy.
just stopped
I mean, I don't go Starbucks now primarily because of the expense, and I think it's overrated. I'll go to some other places, but
back in the day.
I
It was
mean,
okay.
I'm not. I mean, even now, to be like, I don't want to sound cynical, but I'm like, if I want to buy coffee, I buy coffee. I wouldn't be like, I wouldn't beat myself up and say I'm supporting a war effort. However, I do understand people who may want to make a conscious or political statement themselves with how they perfectly got the right to do that, and if it
Like when Jay-Z said no more, what's it, Cristal, or no more throwbacks, like, or no more auto-tune. Oh shit, that hit. But look, but it came back with a vengeance. A boycott is a boycott. You can do whatever people could do. Having dreads, Sean Carter having dreads is a black statement, black political statement, especially being as corporately powerful as he is.
Well, even though now they're suggesting that Beyonce's been bleaching her skin, but that's just speculation at the minute from a recent appearance, and people are saying she looks as white as Kim Kardashian. However,
It's okay. It's okay. India Ari is still dark skinned and beautiful. SZA is
you
still
know,
dark skinned and
yeah,
beautiful. Spice is
her
still
mom
dark
Tina,
skinned and beautiful.
her mom Tina spoke out and said it's not true, but said hey,
You
but
know
yeah,
what
no,
I mean?
I'll
It's
just
fine.
throw that.
Let them do what they want, bro.
Yeah, no,
Like it.
I ain't even. Just on the note, because you mentioned Jay-Z, because you just on that note, because yeah, people, and it's the same sort of thing. Just like people are gonna take things as they interpret, because you have some people that will see them as strong figures and representations for black people. Some may look at them and say, "Oh, well, they're sold out. They've got all this money now." So you're always gonna have people with polarizing thoughts,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I,
you
I
will.
guess that's a part of things. Obviously, it shouldn't
I might
be.
have been like that a bit. I mean, like I grew up in a household where it was like, don't bleach your skin and don't wear extensions. You know what I mean? And we still hold to that. You know what I mean? And I'm kind of glad we grew up like that because we don't have to have extensions or something that isn't inherently ours to be grateful for what we are. You know what I mean? I'm really glad that that's how I grew up. You know,
Yeah.
because now, like, when I see black girls, I'm like, I know that's your weave, but what's your hair like? Do I like your braids? You know what I mean? Because, I mean, like, I have dreads and sometimes I rock cornrows. How is it that I'm confident with my hair? You got the same hair as me and you're not confident? Like, You know what I mean? If
Yeah,
anything, you should feel better because you're a woman.
yeah. There's a lot of stuff around the identity, the image. I mean, I try, especially now in more of a older or mature age, to judge people less on some of these things. A good
I ask
example,
people why
Michael.
they
A
do
good
things,
example,
rather
Michael.
than judge them.
A good example being Michael Jackson, who regardless of how he ended out going there and looked at the end, you know, we still recognize him even now. Probably more so in his death to some people as a black man. So I say that to say, yeah, we can't judge people too much because look at Mikey, one of the greatest example, but yeah, he still was a black man. So
Even if he was white on the inside, the jeans was black, bro. That was a black boy. The
yeah,
Jackson
that's what I'm
5,
saying.
that was a little black boy. No matter what surgery you do, so on and so forth, that's still a black boy.
There you go. So yeah.
It's still like, even though it's like Lil Kim did whatever, so on and so forth, that's still Kim.
Yeah. We don't
That's
obviously,
still the OGS.
some things we don't respect it, or the community ain't are gonna frown upon some things, especially if they feel you've and
Not everyone. A human
people
being is
got
allowed
people
to opinion,
people
and a
got the
human being is
choices.
allowed to not be offended too.
Yeah, I
Yes.
mean, to me, if you're a celebrity, it passes you even. Not to say you can't have the human emotion of being offended, but you've gone past those parameters of even should even be worrying about being offended because you're at that
Yeah, you're
position.
right. I mean, because once
You're
you're a
gonna be
celebrity,
you're gonna
you're
be.
more like you're more like a custodian to someone's dopamine at this point.
Yeah, you're gonna be open to that scrutiny and criticism. So I'll say that with a lot of people do feel she looks better before, but hey, it's her life, that's her choice. However she presents herself, but as you said, regardless of
If
how
you
she,
transcend the face and body, that's still Lil Kim that wrote those songs.
exactly, regardless of how she looked now,
Yeah, that's
people
still Kim
still
that wrote those songs, bro.
people still accept her as
I still listen to Jump Off. I still listen to Put Your Lighter Up.
yeah, he's a bit, I'm familiar with Kim from prior to that, but that one really,
Yeah,
I was out, I was out that era, but
baby.
I was yeah, I was at that era, but it wasn't really my era per se. But I mean, I fuck with them joints. I know them joints, but yeah, I mean, but Kim, she represented done a bit for the culture, but yeah, it's one of those things, bro. It's one of those things. I mean, we just gotta represent. I think, to kind of wind things down on a positive note, just for the global community. You know, yeah, guys, just I'd encourage people personally to just find strength in your own character and your own thought process and uniqueness. I know that we live in a time now where people talk about a lot of wars, but we're also seeing a lot of information wars, and some say the biggest war is
There's
for
a
the
lot of
war
peace too, by the way.
on the
There's a
mind.
lot of peace too.
Oh yeah, we can't have one without the other, man. And the thing is,
There's a lot of peace too. It's the people with big money that are causing wars, but the people that are not interested in that means of power and access, they live in good, big man. I say this: when the system fails you, your neighbors won't. But are you good to your neighbors in the first place?
no. Well, as I was saying, man, it's just there's a lot of information wars, so just guys, don't go too heavy on wormholes of information and stuff. Just try to go with your right intuition on stuff. Do your
Go with the
research,
facts.
you
Go with
know,
the facts.
do your research, and that's the best you can do. Keep an open mind is my number one. I'd say to everybody, keep an open mind because guys. So it sounds like we've lost Maff once again. So I'm gonna wind down on this one.